He went to go back there.
I just want.
The username is my
First initial, last name. Yeah, I use a letter.
Beneath.
Was it James or Jim?
Just Jim. I gotta say,
No, it's much better. Yeah.
Well, I have this special tool. This first initial, last name, you get rid of the accent. And that's as far as I'm gonna go with it. I was in front of a Brazilian.
Well, that's a
expired.
That can.
That can't be it?
That's it, yeah. For-
Oh, yes.
You're gonna come back to it.
Okay, I have a, I don't know why I did that.
I was saying. That's what you want.
We start and have them give it to you when we're doing it? Is that okay? Or do you want to wait? Just want to wait a little while? Sounds good.
I couldn't have.
You sure you want me to wait? There you go. I'll wait. I'll just give him 1 second. We'll start in just a moment. We've got a couple technical difficulties up here.
I have to win.
Oh, that.
I have
Well,
to.
I did a poll at the restaurant, and it was a tie. It was tied.
I had something on my phone. We're not having it.
A subtle amount should be limited.
Since I don't. Since I don't have any.
Absolutely.
I don't think fancy colored diamonds.
That's a lot of things.
Oh, wait, stop.
But I got the.
I don't have money. I see. Right. There's just.
Ready?
I bring my, I think, try to play out. Be next. Get over that. The first button.
Yeah. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, we're going to call to order the special city commission meeting for January 21st, 2025 at 7:36 PM. We have roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Here.
Commissioner Parnas, Commissioner Preston,
Here.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Here.
Mayor Gans.
Here, will you please stand for a moment of silence and our pledge of allegiance? Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. If we could have approval of the agenda tonight for January 21st, 2025.
So moved. Second.
Motion by Commissioner Parnas, second by Commissioner Hudak. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? All right, Madam Clerk.
For those attending via Zoom online wishing to speak on the item, please click raise hand at the bottom under the reactions tab, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Those attending via Zoom by telephone, please press *9 to raise your hand, and your audio will be unmuted when you are recognized by Mayor Gans. Please make sure your audio is unmuted on your end by pressing *6. Thank you.
First and only item on tonight's agenda is interview shortlisted candidates for city manager position and potential appointment of a permanent city manager pending negotiation of an employment agreement. Mr. Jim Deneen is here from the recruiting firm that you all hired, and I believe he plans to come up and give a brief overview of his proposed process for tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Dean.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Commissioners. Pretty excited. This is an important evening to try and select a new city manager. For the public's sake, to say that we had a really good response. I think the reputation of the city is such that we had a real outpouring of candidates. Obviously, we had pretty tight credentials that you needed, and we still got 90 applicants, 90 potential applicants and candidates. Of that, we got 90 total applicants, 20 from different states and 58 from the great state of Florida. I reviewed all those, and out of that group, 9 people stood out in terms of their experience. I interviewed all those 9 people at length. Thereupon, I submitted that book electronically to the mayor and the commissioners for your review of all those resumes. We gave all the resumes, we gave the names of all the people that actually applied, but we gave you all the material we had, resumes, et cetera, on the candidates. We did our background search. We did our references on those 9 people. And then at one of your subsequent commission meetings, working with you and the council or the commission, you decided which 4 that you felt you would want to interview in person. Those interviews will take place tonight so that everyone understands and the public understands. The 4 candidates are sequestered in a separate room upstairs. They will not hear each other's responses to the questions. I have a suggested list of 10 questions. I will pass that out if you'd like. Mr. Mayor, I can give those to you and you can give them to the other, or I can just,
To the clerk,
clerk,
actually.
and she can give them to you. I just want everyone to know, no one has seen these questions except for myself.
Yeah.
And then you can decide how you want to use those questions, Mr. Mayor. When you're ready to have candidates come down, they will be brought down individually by alphabet. After you question the candidates and you're completely done with each candidate will be resequestered in the same room. So they, once again, won't hear each other's responses. And then as you get through the process and you get to the end to where you're going to decide, you always have the opportunity then, because the candidates have been sequestered, to bring them down one at a time and to ask additional questions. That usually works for some commissions, especially if you get good candidates that are very competitive with each other. Unless you have any questions of me, we will start the process when you decide that you want to move forward.
Thank you. And Mr. Deneen and I spoke beforehand, coming down here, just to kind of understand how this will work and how it will flow. And I'm going to kind of recite what you and I talked about and determine, make sure everybody's on board with that. So the first part of it, we've been distributed the questions. I'm sure each one of us have probably come up with our own questions as well. We can take a look at these questions, determine if we're okay with these questions, if there's any questions we want to eliminate from here that we don't feel is important enough for us to ask. We can also add to this list of any questions that we have. And now's the kind of time to talk about that. We'll open it to the public, see if the public has any suggestions that they would like to hear to find out some potential questions. After that, we'll decide on what our final question, what our questions will be. We'll bring the candidates in. The candidate will do a brief introduction. They're going to answer our questions. They're going to get about 2 to 4 minutes to answer the questions. We're going to ask the city clerk to put them on a timer. And if we have any additional questions, you can ask that if you'd like. The candidate's going to be allowed to wrap up what they have to say. We're going to do each one at a time coming down. We're going to ask the same questions except for our follow-up questions. Is that correct?
Correct. Usually the base questions that you all decide you want to ask, it's good to ask all the candidates same questions. But then once you get past that, sometimes the answer they give creates in your mind a question unique to that person.
Right. So, once we agree on what the questions are, and if you want to ask an additional question, we're trying to ask, unless it's related specifically to an answer from them, ask the same questions of each candidate. Okay. After that, we can deliberate if we want to bring down any of the candidates to ask them a specific question. If we're on the fence about something or we have some further questions, we can do that, and then we can make a decision whether we're going to decide tonight or continue the process or whatever you'd like to do.
And then I would like to add, what the clerk and I talked about and the mayor talked about was that for the candidate's sake, I mean, obviously you tell them 2 to 4, they have to learn how to make sure that they do those things within the time frame you've asked to move the process along. She's going to put the clock up at 45 minutes because that's about the normal time. And that way the candidate can look and determine where they stand so that you give everybody an opportunity to have the same amount of time to answer a question. I've seen where this process, sometimes it's not managed. And in the last 3 questions, people are rushing through because they didn't have enough time saved.
Well, if it makes sense, why don't we put them on a 3-minute timer and we'll give an additional 1 minute after that to go, just like we handle the public comment.
That's good. That's a real good way.
That way we keep everybody in the same and it matches your time frame that you like to keep us in.
Correct. That will work. That will work well. And I think it's easier on the candidate because, some of these, if you're going to try and impress you because they really know something, it's easy to go over 3 or 4 minutes.
Okay. Thank you. I guess we're going to take a few minutes here to go ahead and review the questions and determine, see if there's any polls. And what I'll do is I'll just ask, question number 1, is everyone okay with? Number 2,
Okay.
We'll go through that. Does that make sense? Try to make this as easy as possible. Yeah. As a matter of fact, do we have extra copies of these questions? If we have,
I gave you all the ones I had, so. I can
right,
count them.
if we can maybe run upstairs and do that, and we have a small enough crowd, let's distribute them to everybody that's here so they can see what we're looking at as well. I think I'm a little, you guys had enough time to look at them?
Pretty much.
Okay. How do you guys feel about question number 1?
I don't like it, because, it says share your thoughts.
You might want to speak in the mic just so she can pick it up.
It says share your thoughts regarding the city strategy and plan. I think that's a tough one because some of the applicants don't know the city strategic plan, and absence of knowing that, to me, it's not good, not a good one.
Okay. How do you feel about Commissioner Hudak? Question number 1.
I can understand Commissioner Preston's concern with regards to that question. Have we provided them with our strategic plan? I don't know what information we provided to the candidates so that they can educate themselves on our city and our strategic plan or implementing a strategic plan.
Our recommendation to the candidates was that we gave them opportunities to go to your website and to review all this material, and those that are interested and really serious usually go and look at that material. The other thing that you can do on that kind of question, you can say your plan or a plan they're familiar with if they're from another community. So that I think the issue is how do they respond and how do they deal with strategic plans? So as long as they can demonstrate, I think if it's not your plan, they have a good answer that shows a plan that they've worked on. The key is making sure that they have the ability to work on a strategic plan, especially on that kind of job.
So we could put something like developing a city's strategic plan?
Correct. That can be modified. That was the essence, I think. Commissioner Preston was right. If you, maybe it's a little too narrow to your city, but the issue was really to try and get them to answer a question related to strategic planning.
So maybe the question is, have they participated in strategic planning and what is their approach? Would that be it?
That'd be a great question.
Does that work better? Okay.
Yeah.
So let's change that question to, have you created a strategic plan? And what is their approach?
There you go.
So are you okay with that then?
Yeah.
Question number 1, Vice Mayor Drosky?
I am. I was kind of curious as who did the homework and who didn't do the homework on our city specifically. The more generic we make the questions, the easier it is for them to answer, to massage an answer.
Well, you can, I think we can also say, have you reviewed our city strategic plan? Yes or no?
Yeah.
Now, have you created a city strategic plan? And what is your approach? Does that
Okay.
work?
Yes.
Yeah. I agree.
Everyone in agreement on that?
Yeah.
Okay. Number 2, what is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities? What would you want to accomplish in the first 6 to 12 months? Commissioner Hudak?
I have no issues with that question.
Commissioner Preston?
No issues.
Commissioner Parnas?
No, I have nothing to add to that question.
Commissioner Drosky?
I'm okay.
Yeah, that's very similar to the question that I had. Okay. So number 3, the city is a wide range of people and businesses. How will you develop an understanding of their perspectives and interests and build relationships in the community? Examples of businesses, nonprofits, etc. How do you engage citizens in the decision-making process? Commissioner Hudak, thoughts?
Good question. I think that's very important for a city manager in Deerfield
Okay.
Beach.
Commissioner Preston,
Same.
Commissioner Parnas,
Same.
Vice Mayor.
I'm okay. I would also ask them, which business would you reach out to first and why? Again, showing their understanding of our city.
Okay. Okay. Number 3, the city has a wide range of people and businesses. How, excuse me, that was, number 4, you did that one. Sorry. Thank you. How will you balance varied internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus? Example, 2 departments that are at odds. How would you advise the city commission of the options? Commissioner Hudak?
I'm not, when you're saying 2 departments are at odds, and how would you advise the city commission of the options? I mean, they report into the city manager and it's, it's their responsibility to resolving it. I'm not sure what the city commission needs to be involved with regards to personnel matters. But I'll leave that to my colleagues to maybe educate me on that.
Commissioner Preston?
I'm challenged with this one as well because of just the way that it reads. When you say that 2 departments are at odds, if you're advising the city commission, that means something has gone awry and there are multiple challenges there. This, to me, would be a thing where the city manager, if they are at odds, would become part of his strategy to eliminate those odds and resolve the problem internally and through policy. But if it says, how will you advise the city commission? I don't know what you would be advising the city commission to do unless it's terminate.
Commissioner Parnas?
I would rather, how would you balance very internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus? 2 departments at odds. City manager controls the departments and should be able to settle it without coming to the commission. That's his job, is to run it. So how would you advise the commission of the options? No, I would take action to solve the problem if I were the city manager, not bring it to the commission.
Yeah. Vice Mayor?
I think all 10 questions are meant to kind of flesh out the different management styles, what we're going to hear from the 4 individuals. So I see what the 10 questions are trying to accomplish. So I understand why we have number 4. I think we're going to get 4 very similar answers to this, I would think, but it doesn't hurt to hear it. But I understand all the questions. If we're talking about whether to eliminate any questions, this was one of the ones that I said we possibly could. But I understand the reason for it. And I think we're going to get 4, at least I think we're going to get 4 semi-similar answers to this one, but it would be good to hear from the candidates on their own because it's trying to flesh out their individual management styles. So I understand the need for it.
Okay. Commissioner Hudak?
So then we can just eliminate how would you advise the city commission of the options? And I think everybody be okay with the rest of the question?
I'm actually okay with that part of it. As far as how would you advise the city commission of the options? I think it's important how options are presented to us, that information isn't held back, that we get a full picture of, what the options are in determining priorities. While we can take a recommendation from a city manager, how they actually tell the commission about it. Do they, focus just on the one option, or do they give us the full picture of what's being decided on? So I'm okay with that second part of it. Are we all right with that?
Then let's keep it in.
Okay. Number 5, tell us about your experience in development and redevelopment projects. What was your role? What were the outcomes and successes? What were your experience been with public-private funding partnerships? Commissioner Hudak?
I love this question. I'm very interested in this answer.
Okay. Commissioner Preston?
No issues.
Commissioner Parnas?
I have no problem with it.
Vice Mayor?
I like this question as well.
Okay. Number 6, describe a time you had to manage a crisis situation in the city setting. Commissioner Hudak?
No issues with this question either.
Preston?
None.
Parnas,
No,
Drosky?
I'm good.
All right. Long-term financing of city operations will require a range of funding options. How do you approach financing and budget management? What techniques or tools have you found effective? Commissioner Hudak,
No issues with this question.
Commissioner Preston,
Okay.
Commissioner Parnas,
no problems.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
I would like for them to add their experience with respect to financing and budget management, because that's such a large part of the role that the city manager plays. I'd like to know not just, what options did they present, but what is your background in finance? What do you bring to the table?
Okay. What guides your management of personnel? How do you approach hiring, performance evaluation, discipline, motivation, et cetera, to build the most effective team? Commissioner Hudak,
No issues.
Commissioner Preston,
None.
Commissioner Parnas,
None.
Vice Mayor Drosky.
None. In fact, I actually like how this is kind of more open-ended, so we can get a, kind of a more internal approach from what the candidates think. So I'm okay with number 8.
Okay. Number 9, how would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps do you take to ensure you're communicating effectively with all commissioners?
No issues.
Commissioner Preston,
None.
Commissioner Parnas,
None, no
Vice Mayor
problem.
Drosky.
None. It's an excellent question.
Okay. Last one, how would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the public or the commission? Commissioner Hudak,
No issues.
None.
Commissioner Preston, Commissioner Parnas.
I'd like to hear what they have to say. I like
Okay.
it.
Vice Mayor.
I'm okay with it.
Okay. Are there any questions that you guys have that you'd like to make as part of our questions that we ask for each candidate? Commissioner Hudak, anything?
No.
Commissioner Preston?
Yes, I did have some, unfortunately, I can't access some of my information in the background around, but what I'd like to know, what is your vision? What vision do you bring to the city of Deerfield Beach? And I would like to know, given our demographics, are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
Okay. So vision, what is your vision for the city?
Mhm.
Okay. Commissioner Hudak, you okay with that?
I think it's an excellent question.
Commissioner Parnas, Vice Mayor Drosky, you guys okay with that?
I'm okay.
Yeah.
What is your vision?
Yes.
Okay. And
Are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
I will say this, well, I think it's a good question to ask. I have a feeling every single one of them is going to say yes. I'm pretty sure we can shorten this meeting if somebody answers no. So,
Yeah. I agree.
respectfully, I think that one, if you want to ask it, we can, but I think the general consensus is everybody answered
And I
yes.
think you're right, but I want to hear him say it.
Okay, that's fine. So it's, are you comfortable?
Working in a multi-ethnic environment or diverse environment.
Okay, any other, Commissioner Parnas, any additional questions? Commissioner Drosky?
I have candidate specific questions, but nothing for all 4.
Okay, all 4, one of the questions that I'd like to ask them is, what is their biggest weakness and how would they overcome it? Are you okay? You guys okay with that?
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's
Okay,
a good question. Number 11.
it'd be 13, yeah, sure. Okay. Everything else was covered. One question I do want to ask each candidate, there's an opening for the Fort Lauderdale city manager position. What I don't want us to do is make a decision on someone who is up for the Fort Lauderdale position. Should they become a finalist or should they move forward with that? I think it's important for us to know if they've applied for that position and if they get this position, do they still plan on taking? Does that make sense?
Our candidates is a finalist for the Fort Lauderdale position. There's 3 finalists. One of them is a finalist already.
Okay. Are you guys okay with us asking that question?
I am.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I wouldn't limit it to Fort Lauderdale. There's other openings in Broward County too.
Yeah, why not change that to any other
Okay, so
municipal job in Broward County?
are you currently, so the question would be, are you currently a candidate for any other city manager position?
Yes.
And if you are offered this job, or if you're chosen for this job, would you leave this job for another job? That makes sense.
Yes.
Does that work for everyone?
No, I disagree with that.
Okay. How would you
I
like to
would
word it?
just simply ask point blank, are you currently applying to be a candidate in a different city? And let's take it from there.
Yeah, so that could kill both jobs.
Okay.
Because anybody
I'm not
looking
gonna
for a
lose
job
it.
is gonna say, of course, if I got the job here, I wouldn't take it. That would be an automatic answer.
Okay. And we can ask that individually if we so choose, another time. I think
Mayor.
that,
Donnie got
Mayor.
his hand up.
I think that, yes,
Mr.
yes, sir.
Janine.
Just so you do know, okay, it is not uncommon and is actually the practice with people that are interested, depending upon what their employment status is, to apply for multiple jobs, because let's face it, no matter how good you are, you got 4 good candidates. Only one person can get the job.
Right.
So it's not a negative if they have applied, okay? So I don't think you're saying that, but for most of these candidates, we ask them that, we make sure, and to be honest with you, a lot of times they don't know how they'll answer that question until they get an opportunity to be offered the job. And then, a lot of times they find out in the chemistry in the room whether they're interested in working here versus somewhere else. Plus, there are things in your employment contract you'd have with them that may be more lucrative to them. They may feel better about that. What I'm saying, it's a hard thing for somebody to answer until
So
the
are
job
you
is in front.
recommending for us to stay away from that question?
I would, only in the sense that I do not think it's a negative. I will tell you this. Of the people that you're going to interview, okay, those 4 people, I cannot imagine that any of them would turn down this offer if they got it.
Okay.
But now, here's the key. A lot will have to do, this is a 2-sided process. I could come in here with the idea this would be the job. After you ask me the questions and I respond based on how you ask me things, I may change my mind. Just like nothing is better than an in-person interview. You're going to know, let's face it, you're going to know a lot by the way they answer, because that is a big part of the job, on whether that cultural fit and chemistry is there. But it's the other way around for them. So just so you know, a lot of times, if you're really good at this and you're a good candidate, the really good candidates, it's a 2-way process of the interview.
Excellent.
I hope I didn't
No,
do something wrong by saying
we'll
that.
stay away from that
Okay.
question. I understand. I appreciate the guidance on it. Thank you. Okay. So I think we've gone through everybody's questions. All right. I'm going to open it up to the public. Anyone from the public want to come up and make a comment?
Yeah,
Anyone, is there anyone online? Okay. All right. I'm going to close it to the public then. Okay.
Mayor.
Yep.
My question is, are you going to be asking the questions?
No, that's our next fun thing that we get to do. We're going to distribute each one of these questions. We have 13 questions that we've all agreed upon.
Mhm.
So nice even number for us. So I'm sorry. I'll reopen it to the public. Ms. Clark-Reed, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mayor, Commissioners. Good evening. The question about the multi-ethnic makeup, the question that Commissioner Preston asked, I would like to know the makeup of the various municipalities or counties that they worked in? What was the makeup of percentage wise of those counties? As far as the racial makeup of those counties?
Thank you. Anyone else? We can close it to the public. I think that question is something that anybody can look at their resume and do their own research on that, rather than ask them for a quiz on what they would know. I think that would be a tough question for them to, and I don't know if we would be able to fact check them on the fly, so I don't quite, I don't think that's a fair question in my opinion. Not that it's not
I think it's a
relevant.
good question, but I can see where you can see.
Someone could just,
Yeah.
you know, they're having to wing it. I don't know if that's but the resumes are public. You can take a look at them, and you can. I'm sure that information is easily available to research that yourselves. Okay, so Commissioner Hudak, do you mind? Yeah, I closed it. I did close it to the public. I did. I'm going to ask the first three. Well, wait a minute. And the reason I'm saying which ones I would ask is the rest of these are notes that I've taken on how we worded it. I don't know if the rest of you guys took notes on that. So question number one, Commissioner Hudak, do you mind taking that? It's, have you created a city strategic plan? What is your approach? And have you read ours? Maybe have you read ours is the first part of that question.
Okay.
Is that okay?
Yeah.
The second question is, what is your management approach? We see that the only caveat on that is, which business would you approach first and why?
That was question 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. So 3, you're okay with asking 3 then with that? Are you okay with that? Okay. So those will be asked by Commissioner Hudak. You're going to do 1, 2, and 3. Commissioner Preston, you want to do 4, 5, and 6? You okay with that?
Now I'm okay with that, but I got a suggestion.
Mhm.
And my suggestion would be this. I would rather you, Mayor, read every question. We take notes, and if we want to have a a question about whatever, let's say if we're on number 1. If I have a question, if I have a comment or something that I can intercede, but I think you should read every one of the questions and we all take our notes. And if we have something to say, I think that would be much easier.
Okay. I think it was recommended by Mr. Deneen that if we all take turn asking these agreed upon questions, it doesn't make it about one particular personality asking the question. It's about each, individuals, because
I can understand that.
how you might ask the questions
Right.
might be a little different than how I might ask the question. So,
But being that they're all written down, they're going to be asked pretty much the same. That's one. And if none of us were giving any comment on any particular question, I could see how that. But if we're all taking notes, when you ask question 1, if I want to say something about question 1, then I can say something and I can question it. I don't see that that's an issue. Well, now we're down to question 2. I just think it would be better that you just go down the list. That's just my feeling.
Okay.
I don't know what my colleagues think.
I agree with Ben.
okay. So I'll just ask the questions?
Mhm.
Okay. Any comment? All right. All right. We'll do that then. Okay. So our next, let's bring down the first victim, I guess.
Wow.
And then do we have time for individual questions at the end of the set questions?
If all this goes well, yes. Yes, you should be able to. Again, it's the candidate's going to come in, give us an intro. We're going to ask the questions. If you have any additional questions at that time, you can ask them, and then they're going to wrap up.
Okay.
And give their parting shot.
And this is 45 minutes per candidate?
No, it's, well, essentially, looking at our list of questions that we have.
What's your vision? Would I ask that at the end?
No,
It's
I'm
33
asking-
minutes
yeah,
if they
yeah,
each
yeah.
have
You
3
asked that.
minutes.
Okay,
to
got it.
answer.
Got it.
It was, what is your vision for the city? Right?
But, mhm.
You're right, 39.
Yes.
They're bringing down the first candidate.
Thank you.
All sequestered, so they didn't hear any of this.
Take the blindfolds off.
Yes. I will tell you that it is not unusual after you've done all the candidates for commissioners, sometimes something somebody said or what you heard from somebody, it's not unusual sometimes. That's why I keep them sequestered for you to ask sometimes and make your decision to bring somebody back down and ask them a specific question or to further on some way they answered. A lot of times that doesn't occur to people that way to ask it till they hear everybody. So after we're done, if you want to bring people down, that is not uncommon when you're making a final decision.
Thank you.
Just for let you know.
No, I don't think so. I don't think so.
The candidates are brought down in alphabetical order, so Mr. Brijmo is first.
Good evening, Mayor, Vice Mayor, and Commission residents of Deerfield. Thank you for having me today. I'm very appreciative to be here to answer whatever questions you have of me as a candidate for the position of City Manager.
Excellent. Do you want to tell us a little bit about yourself? Give yourself an intro.
Sure. I was actually born in Florida. I'm one of the rare Florida residents that's still in Florida. Grew up outside of Jacksonville, Florida. Military brat. Moved around after that a little bit. I lived overseas most of my formative years, about 3.5 years in Japan, and traveled throughout Asia. Was very fortunate to go to an international school. Met a lot of wonderful people, got a lot of wonderful experiences, different cultural experiences. After that, we moved to Europe. And I lived in Naples, Italy. I actually graduated from Naples High School, which sometimes becomes a problem when people are looking for my high school diploma because it's not Naples, Florida. It's actually Naples, Italy. But I graduated there, was able to also get a lot of exposure and travel quite a bit throughout Europe and also the Middle East. Then after that, came back, ended up going to University of Florida, graduated from University of Florida. And shortly thereafter began my law enforcement career. Served in law enforcement in Broward County for 26.5 years. Almost 26.5 years. And then after that, ended up coming to the city, working for the city since 2021 as a public safety director. And then for the last almost 11 weeks as the interim city manager. A lot of the experiences along the way have been life-changing for most of you. I have a wonderful wife and 4 incredible children. They're all adults now, which is a different kind of scenario. They were all toddlers at one time and they just kind of grew together throughout the years. So I enjoy family time. I value family. I also am, as you've probably seen on my resume, a lifelong learner. I'm continuously learning. I've learned from, I can't even tell you when, since I was a teenager, always trying to expand and gain more knowledge and information around me. Throughout my adult life, I took, I would say, more than 3,000 hours of advanced training while I was at the sheriff's office. I was very fortunate to have several different assignments, command level assignments. To give you an idea, for the sheriff's office, I was the accreditation manager for a time. The accreditation, we were at the time, the largest duly accredited sheriff's office in the entire country. We had 6,000 employees at the time, and I was in charge of all of the law enforcement, national and state level accreditation. I was also the staff inspector for the sheriff's office at that time. I also worked many, many years, almost 5 years, in command office. So I reported directly to, as a manager for accountability, I reported directly to 4 majors who ran all of the contract cities for Broward County. That was phenomenal. I got to deal with unions and collective bargaining agreements and all kinds of other exposure to finance and grants and other areas of the county. Kept going back to school. I ended up getting a master's degree in theology. Also was ordained as a deacon in the Catholic Church, and still maintain that, of course, today. Continued all of my other advancements, and clearly it's in the resume and the background, but was fortunate to get other additional command level assignments in Weston and eventually here in Deerfield. And those assignments were informative from different perspectives. It's very, to see the different types of communities that we have in Broward. You can only imagine. At one point, I was also Central Broward. At one point in Tamarack, I've worked in many of the cities around Broward County. And each of those cities has given me a different kind of perspective. But when I came here almost 8 years ago, I completely fell in love with Deerfield. I think Deerfield is a phenomenal community. It's a gem. It's an absolute gem. The history of Deerfield, the capacity of Deerfield to be, I think, the unique and outstanding city that it can be in South Florida, complete South Florida, is unquestionable. And I have been passionate about that since I first came here. I did not come here by choice in 2017. I was sent here to deal with some issues that were at the sheriff's office, but I came here and am very proud that that I have served this community for the last almost 8 years. After being in the city as the public safety director for several years, and then being appointed as the interim city manager, it has been enlightening for the last 11 weeks. I think that seeing the city from this particular perspective is unique. But I have been able to take a lot of the skills, especially the leadership qualities, especially some of the finance background, and apply that. As you know, I did 2 years of work at Harvard Business School. I did their program for leadership development, and then I continued to do behavioral economics. I did finance. I also did additional leadership classes and strategic classes, strategic leading. And Harvard awarded me alumni status because of all that work. So I was very proud of that. But more than being proud of that, it was the incredible education that I was able to receive from that and bring that practical experience back to my work life. So kind of a little bit of a circular way of going around that. But all of that throughout my entire career. So 3 decades of public service. I've always been guided. I have my own professional core values of integrity, dignity, collaboration, and service. They've never failed me. I don't think they ever will. And that is mostly what I rely on, that I bring to the city of Deerfield Beach.
Thank you. We're going to ask you a few questions. Have you read our strategic plan?
I have read your strategic plan. In fact, I was involved in creating the strategic plan. So yes, I have read the strategic plan.
So you have created a city strategic plan.
For the city, yes. This is the one that I had worked on. I started working on strategic plans back in 2005. Approximately 2005 was the first time I actually, at the time, was having an issue with a unit, and there was a lot of morale issues. There were some other issues, and I brought in one of an outside trainer to help us to create our own strategic plan for just small group. It was only, I think there were 9 of us at the time. But that was enough to help us get over a tipping point to start to be unified. But I've been involved in the strategic planning ever since, when I was in accountability, when I was in strategic intelligence at the sheriff's office, and also as the staff inspector and accreditation manager. I was always involved. I reported directly to the undersheriff or the sheriff, and except during the time I reported only to the majors. But I was always involved in the strategic planning for that.
And what would you call your approach?
My approach for strategic planning? Really, the basis for me is to look at and to discover, it's more of a conversation, to discover what the values of the organization are, to take those values and then to build upon those values with the stakeholders and the constituents. But also, in this case for the city, it's reliant upon the commission and what the commission's priorities are and where the vision of the commission is and how they want to see the city develop over the next 5, 10, 20, 30, 40 years. So if you don't have the dialogue back and forth, up and down, you're going to miss quite a bit. But with a strategic plan, really trying to get a unified set of values in place, professional values in place that speak to the community, but also speak to the professionalism of the expectation of the employees, it will fail. And that's important. Strategic planning for me is uncompromisable. I do not feel that any culture in any organization should allow for compromising the core values. All of the core values in an agency should be met all the time by all employees. And less than that's not acceptable.
Thank you. And I'm not sure if this is explained upstairs. So what we're doing is we're asking an intro from each candidate. Each candidate we're going to ask, we have 13 questions.
Oh.
I'm going to ask them and it's going to be 3 to 4 minutes for you to respond. So
Okay.
just so you know, apologize. Will you please let all the candidates know that upstairs? Because I'm not sure if we did that. Okay. Question number 2, what is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities? And what would you want to accomplish in the first 6 to 12 months?
What was the first part? What was the?
What is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities?
So with the existing ones, I've already started this. We have, I instituted monthly directors meetings starting from the very first moment that I was appointed. Actually, the very day after that appointment, we had a directors meeting. In those directors meetings, we talk about some of the larger plans. We talk about some of the bigger issues that we're facing. And we strategize in those meetings and leave those meetings with solutions. That is the goal of those meetings. They are collegial, sometimes passionate, let's say, but the whole point of that is to get resolution to any of the issues that we have in the city. I also have monthly leadership team meetings. That's with directors, assistant directors, and other key management personnel throughout the entire organization. And in those, we're dealing with a lot of issues related to succession planning, leadership development. From my perspective, there is nobody that's indispensable in our organization, and we should make sure that everybody can come in and step in and fill into the shoes of the next in line. And that's a key important deficit that I've seen, along with cross-departmental training and cross-departmental cooperation, which has been lacking and is being mended through some of these efforts. Also to gain insight into the issues that are going on, I meet bi-monthly with each department individually and go through their specific concerns in a deeper level to get into the weeds a little bit on some of the issues that need to be teased out a little bit more. So from those 3 types of meetings and also listening to the community, oftentimes we're very fortunate actually in Deerfield. We have a community that is willing to bring things forward. I have been in places where the community is not as willing to come forward with issues that they're seeing, but we have residents that are willing to do that, and businesses too, which is an important component of it, because oftentimes in government, we end up just looking internally and we don't look, for lack of a better term, we don't look past our belly button, and we don't see some of the other issues that are happening around us. So using that feedback from the community and from the commission as well helps us to get that better perspective on what needs to be addressed in the city.
Okay. What would you want to accomplish in the first 6 to 12 months of the job?
I would say that some of the big issues that need to be addressed, there are financial issues. Obviously, we're getting into budget season right now. We've already looked at some aspects of it. We've started a process that looks at our budget from a lean budgeting perspective. I don't believe, at least certainly not since I've been here in 2017, that we've ever really examined the budget from a different kind of perspective other than this is what we spent last year, what are we spending next year? This challenges department directors to really examine what the taxpayer money is going toward, and how we can actually spend it more appropriately if necessary. There are needed expenses that we have to pay for. That is one thing, but to make sure that we're being as efficient as we can and that what we're giving back to the community is effective in our results. But I think on the financial side, we also have a big thing coming up, as you're aware.
We'll let you wrap up.
Okay. Just, I would say that, as you're aware, the state passed, the voters voted in a CPI index on homeowners exemptions where we're capped at 3%. And so that gap, that taxable value of our property is going to become less and less as the years go on, which means if we don't come up with better and more creative financial solutions, the city's going to be losing revenue year after year after year.
Thank you. Number 3, the city's a wide range of people and businesses. How will you develop an understanding of their perspectives and interests and build relationships in the community, whether it be businesses, nonprofits?
Since I first came here in 2017, I have been engaged with the community. One of the things I changed with the law enforcement district was to create a community engagement unit. We did that through a series of events, and I'm happy to say that in one of the fiscal years, I'd have to think harder, but the city actually approved additional deputies to be able to enhance that community engagement. A lot of the stuff recently you've seen with PAL, we did a lot of after-school tutoring. They still do it. One of the things I'm most proud about is most of the programs that we were able to instill there still operate today and are still mentoring and working with our youth, whether it's in career development, or in self-esteem and other areas that they needed. The community engagement from that moment, I was engaged with Kiwanis, Rotary, the Women's Club, the Historical Society, and have been since, as well as we have great partners here with Publix and JM Families. I have continuously reached out to those kinds of organizations and other businesses. Since being the interim city manager, I have met several times already with business groups and individual business leaders in their own right to hear from them and to get a better understanding of them, of where their struggles are and where some of the constraints are that we can explain to them and strategize about solutions moving forward with the city.
How do you engage citizens in the decision-making process?
A lot of it is through the community outreach. If you do not have community outreach or community engagement, this is a non-starter in all aspects of city government. The reality is the city manager works for this commission, but this commission is voted in by the residents. And so to that end, the job of the city manager is to carry out the mission that the commission comes up with based on what the residents need, what the resources are available to accomplish that, and to continuously be engaged with those residents. The same thing that we do with individual district meetings, I go to all of those. Our activities that we have, the special events that we have throughout the year, all of those, you all know that you see me at every single one of those. One of the things that we don't do a good job of at those is we don't market the city and we don't sell the city. And that will change because we need to do a better job at those of having our recruitment there, having our resources there, and allowing for all of the citizens to know what we're doing. We are starting to look at more at the social media. Social media changes over time. Some people use Facebook. Some people now are Instagram. There are all kinds of different ways to engage the community. I have been on podcasts as well in the city.
Thank you. Which business would you go to first and why?
I'm already working with businesses. I don't know that there's a first one. I know on my list is Amazon out west still. That is one. I've been to the facility, but I would like to engage with them more, as well as I know that we have some new businesses that are developing, and I want to stay on track with them of what they see their needs are coming on. For example, we have the Chick-fil-A and we have some other businesses that are starting up down on 10th Street. So I do want to continue to be engaged with them. And not just the businesses, but Broward Health North. I've had several meetings over the years with their CEO and their board, and we'll continue to do that. They're a great partner for the city, and they do a lot, and they're going to continue to do a lot. And that's a critical pillar in our society, or in our city as well.
Thank you. How will you balance varied internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus? Example, two departments are at odds. So how would you advise the city commission of the options?
Well, before coming to the city commission, if those departments are at odds, I would work with those two departments. A lot of times it's trite, but it works, to use the 5 whys, to have the departments that are there and ask them the 5 whys. And it's basically, you know, why do you need to do this, or why do you need to do this, or why is this your priority? And after you do that a few times, you start to eventually get to the question that's either going to be how or what. And when you get there is usually where you'll find consensus. I do look for consensus. I think that oftentimes developing the relationships with the employees allows for people to understand that the ultimate priority is what the citizens are asking through this commission. That is the job and the function of the city manager and the administration. That the commitment from the city government is to serve the people. And we have certain things that are needs. I mean, there are needs that we can't, buckle on, but there are a lot of other things that we can be creative about in serving the community. And that is part of the function of creating the culture that says what the city is actually here to do. That is a culture that I'm presently developing with directors right now.
Thank you. Tell us about your experience in development and redevelopment projects. What was your role and what were the outcomes and successes?
In development and redevelopment, my role has mostly been advisory capacity up until this point, to the last time frame that I've been working as the interim city manager. And most of that has been advisory from a public safety aspect or working on a master plan to help others work on that. Some of the influence that I could do with development and redevelopment, while I oversaw code compliance and as well, did allow for more things to happen. So for example, a lot of the lighting that's been done in some of the parks is done through a partnership between parks and code compliance. There is funding that we use that is revenue from code fines that has been used in the target areas of the city to bolster that and to give that kind of security and that in development essentially into certain areas of the community. At this point, as the interim city manager, I work very closely with both economic development as well as planning development services. And we have several meetings, well, with economic development weekly, with planning development services, usually 3 or 4 times a month, to work on where our development is going. We have developers that are interested in the city. I've met with several of them. I have my own ideas about where they're coming from, but I've been part of the ULI for the last 3 years. So I engage in that way also with ULI. But I also go to other cities and look at what they're doing with economic development and working on aspects of how they preserve their history while also promoting modernity and balancing that in their city. I think one of the things that is very important in the city of Deerfield Beach is recognizing and honoring the history. And I don't think a single development project should happen in the city if it's not honoring the history, if it's not somehow developed from that perspective. And also, one of the things that I have told Planning Development Service is I don't even want to hear from a developer unless they've already examined traffic and parking. And it needs to be some sort of a robust analysis of that. So there are some procedures I've already put in place. Another one, even on the city side with development, is I just reinstituted a modified development review committee for city projects so that those are vetted to the highest level before they even come to commission. And that's a very important thing. When things come to commission, the commission should be assured that that has been vetted in every direction, that there are no surprises coming down, and that the number that we present to you is the absolute very best number that we can come up with.
Thank you. The other part of that is, what has your experience been with public-private funding partnerships?
So public-private partnerships is a tricky situation. I will tell you that as the public safety director, I'm not a fan on the public safety side personally. It would have to be a very robust plan. On other aspects of it, I think it's viable and good and has its place. The public-private partnership I've been to, the national mayors, we had a national mayors meeting that I was at where we discussed a lot of the public-private partnerships and what is available for that. I have been engaged with two of the individuals from that meeting that also are wanting to look at public-private partnerships in the city. We just had a recent developer also who was looking at a public-private partnership, and those are being vetted contemporaneously.
Thank you. Describe a time you had to manage a crisis situation in a city setting.
A crisis situation. I think I come from crisis, from 26 years of handling crisis. A crisis situation in a city, everything from, catastrophic storms and damage to mass shootings to hostage situations. I have managed all of those and been the commander on scene. And unfortunately, have had to actually engage in some of those scenes. But I would say that crisis management was daily for me in my role as a law enforcement officer.
Thank you. Long-term financing of city operations require a range of funding options. How do you approach financing and budget management? What is your background regarding finance, and what techniques or tools have you found effective?
So my background, I mentioned that at Harvard Business School, I did do several courses with finance itself. But also my finance experience really began back when I worked in strategic intelligence and in accountability. A lot of the finance at that time was more specific. Well, it was actually county-wide finances, but it was more specific to law enforcement, of course. But seeing how the revenues are actually accounted for is very important, although it is different than what the municipal government takes in. The finance for long-term, well, actually even at that time and then also after that as the staff inspector, did a lot with grants. I think grants are overutilized for some necessities. We have to be very careful with that. That is not what the purpose of grants are. They're not for what our needs are. And I think that that's a dangerous path to go down, is to look at, oh, we're going to fund this with grants. We're going to fund this with grants, especially when there's a commitment that has to come from the city. There are plenty of opportunities in grants where it is for the things that would enhance the basic services that we can provide or enhance some of the quality of life issues. But we don't need to overcommit the taxpayer to those things in future years. I think that's a big danger. And so I'm cautious about financing through grants on necessities, but on enhancements, I think it's a very positive thing. There are a lot of financial opportunities in the city from the tax base and also from our fund accounts. We are looking at two of our fund accounts right now to see where we can enhance those accounts for protecting the city against, say, some catastrophic building collapse or with debris removal, with sustainable management. And we are looking at those right now to kind of bolster that for the city, to protect the city in the future and not have to use our general reserve. So there are a lot of ways to prepare to protect the city, but for the general funding of things, the residents deserve to know what those limitations are. And, there should be nothing that comes to the commission that has a price tag on it that doesn't also have an understanding of what that really means. So sometimes there are choices have to be made. You may be able to do choice A, but you're not going to get B. And that has to be clear to residents. That has to be clear to the commission so that there isn't overcommitment, and then we end up with financial obligations that are untenable in subsequent years. You know, it's another, you may have a question about it later, but it's another issue that I have even in the public safety sector with the costs of public safety. But that's, yeah.
Thank you. What guides your management of personnel? How do you approach hiring, performance evaluation, discipline, motivation, build the most effective?
I would say that building the most effective team for me is about engagement. My style is mostly a servant leader. My engagement with staff happens at all levels. As an example, since 11 weeks ago, I meet with every single employee here that gets off probation. I have a one-on-one with them. We talk about their experiences. We talk about their perspectives on the city, what they bring to the city, what their lifelong dream is for the city and for themselves. But we talk about a lot. But I engage at all levels of the organization. The directors understand that now. They know that it's not a trying to got you behind the back, which is why even at the leadership team meetings, I stress and emphasize that every single employee should be coming to work, should be engaged, should be part of the solution to any problem that we have. I don't care if it's person on day 3 of the job that has the right idea. That's fine. We'll go with the right idea. But I have done that my entire career. I always put people before positions. I don't hang on titles. And oftentimes the best solutions come from the least expected places. And I've always been open to that. But I do collaboration is one of my 4 key principles in my own personal values, and I continue to do that. It has always served me well. Sometimes it slows the process, but it has always served me well, and that is critical to my success.
Thank you. How would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps do you take to ensure you're communicating effectively with all commissioners?
I think for this particular body, you probably know from the past 11 weeks and even before that, the last 8 years, I hope I don't over talk to you guys. I try to talk to you as frequently as I can. I talk to you all the time. I want to keep you guys informed to the highest level of what is boiling up to my level, at least so that we're all on the same page. And if there are any issues that you need discussed, my phone is completely accessible to each of you. And for most of you, I would say we talk almost daily. And that's important to me. I never want a mayor, vice mayor, commissioner to be caught off guard by something that might be happening, or certainly if residents are coming to you, I want to know about those things because our residents deserve the highest level of service. So that communication channel that you've experienced in the last 11 weeks and certainly over even the last 8 years will not change. That is part of who I am. That's part of that collaboration that is fundamental to my style.
Thank you. How would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the public or the commission?
A lot of times it's education. I've learned that over many, many years that oftentimes when people understand the why behind a decision is being made or what the constraints are that we don't have control over, it makes it easier. It may be something that none of us like, but at the end of the day, we need to at least leave with understanding, and we need to leave with recognizing the dignity of each other and recognizing that we're all on the same page still. We're still trying to do the same things, but not everything is always possible. We have limited resources. That's the reality of government. We don't have a pot of money, or we're not at the end of the rainbow. So we do have to limit what we can do, but there are creative ways. And the only way you're going to get the creative ways is if you build a team of trust, if you build a team that knows that you're going to respect them, if you build a team that knows that they're going to be heard. And all 3 of those things, I think you could ask any of the team members that I have, and that's how I treat them. as colleagues. That's how I treat them. And that building of that team of trust through collaboration and also respecting each other's dignity is highly important.
What is your vision for the city?
In a poetic sense, I would say to be the gem of South Florida. I think that that is absolutely true. The reality is the city is only going to prosper if we are able to focus on what makes us unique, what really stands out from our history, that we preserve what Deerfield is historic from a historical perspective as well. We need to maintain that identity. I think those that have been at a ULI, it wasn't articulated well, I don't think, at the ULI by those who were there, but it really is about what it is that makes us unique as a city. And you can take that preservation of history and you couple that with the progress that we're looking for, the modernity. How do we sustain the historical understanding of our city? They have to go hand in hand. If you just focus on the history and we leave it as it is, you're probably looking at a ghost town one day. If you only go for modernity and you're looking at only what the biggest, bestest, whatever you can do, you're going to leave your entire city behind. You're not going to have an identity and you're going to be like any other anonymous city anywhere on the Eastern Coast. But together, preserving that history, working on the progress for the city for the future, that's where the prosperity of this city will come from. That's how we'll get to prosperity. And what I mean by prosperity is that we're acknowledging and we're empowering our residents to drive that momentum. That's where I see it.
Are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
Absolutely. I always have. I still do. I have, there's never been an issue for me with that.
What is your biggest weakness? How would you overcome it?
The second part of the question is more difficult than the first. The biggest weakness, I get impatient. I don't like delays. Certainly don't like delays that don't have a reasonable explanation to them. I like to be fast moving and I like things to progress at a rapid pace. I would say that that is my biggest weakness. I do try to keep people close to me that can call me out on that from time to time and go, hey, I know you want to, change the world tomorrow, but we have some steps in between and you know what those steps are. But that is my biggest weakness, I would say, is my impatience to get things done. I don't like pending items at all. To overcome that, the best I do is I do surround myself with staff that, remind me that we are making the progress. It's just not going to be as fast as what I'm looking for. I mean, I think I've even heard probably from this dais about the slowness of government, the molasses of government, how it seems like things take forever. I understand that things have to be planned for. They have to be budgeted. They have to be part of a longer term plan. I get all of that. But I demand that at least the steps along the way and the progress is made. And usually that's what I do, is really break down the larger projects so that I can see that all of the many steps are being filled along the way to continue to make progress. But I would say the impatience of getting things finally accomplished.
Thank you. Okay. I think it's the last one that we have. If you'd like to wrap up and give a final thoughts.
I'm pleased that I'm being considered. I value each of you. I respect each of you, and for you to get to this point where you're making this decision, and I think that it's for you a difficult decision because you are concerned about the residents and you are looking for the future of the city. I can assure you that no matter what the situation is, I also will always have the best interests of the city at heart and at mind and at the top of the priority list regardless. I will tell you that the cultural changes that have already started to be made with staff, directors, and on down, even line staff, is not temporary. It's a permanent change that will be taking place. And it's one that is in alignment with strategic plan. It's one in alignment with more of the service-minded orientation toward our residents. And I think that what needs to be clearly established is that whole dynamic of the residents elect you. And they elect you for a reason. And, we have elections coming. It's the reality of the political life. And the city manager needs to carry out the will of the commission, regardless of who they are or what they're getting in their feedback, with advice, of course, but to carry that out with the staff that we have, understanding where we have restrictions, understanding where we have hurdles that maybe can't be overcome. But the job of the city manager is also to be creative and trying to figure out ways that we can come to solutions that are not an either or. Sometimes they're a both and. Like I mentioned about preserving the history and progressing toward the future and making prosperity out of that. There are a lot of things that go hand in hand. And, when we don't become creative, we could all the easy answer is not sticking your neck out. The easy answer is not taking a risk. I think that it's time for the city of Deerfield Beach to think bigger than that, and the city of Deerfield Beach to recognize who it really is, and to move from that position forward to the future.
Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you.
I will work, you have a couple of minutes, I'll go up and get,
Sure, absolutely.
Mr. Randy
Mr.
Cross.
Yes. My voice is shot, so.
I can hear it. Chocolate.
What, for me or you? You feeling shitty?
Yeah. I just, I'm here to.
In harmony.
We did that a month before the election, be the best time.
Sounds like a great idea.
Your way from.
Just District 3.
Yes, just District 3. District 4 also is being collected. Yeah, but with us, it's just 3 of the mayor. Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Yes. You guys ready? Mr. Cross? How are you, Mr. Cross? I'm hopefully this has been explained to you upstairs, but if you could kind of give us a brief overview and introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about yourself. We're going to ask you a series of questions and you can wrap it up at the end.
Okay.
If you'd like.
Mr. Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to be here this evening. My name is Randy Cross. I actually worked here once before and a lifetime ago back in the 90s. I was at University of Central Florida and I came back home to South Florida. I was born down here for a girl that dumped me shortly after I came back down here. But I got a job at the city of Deerfield Beach, which really, I was going to FAU, so it was close. And I worked in the Public Works Department for several years, and the bug really bit me for local government. And I really started grad school at FAU and had a great opportunity at Miramar to as an intern. So I started there, and that was 23 years ago, give or take. I actually just put in my paperwork to retire from there, so I've got just about a month and a half left to go there. It's been an amazing ride. I've had a lot of opportunities there. I've worked in the police department, HR, purchasing, the city manager's office. Got my doctorate degree while working there, and I was able to take advantage of the project at the city. So it was really a wonderful experience. So I thought this is a great opportunity when I saw this position open up to try my hand at a city manager's role. I think I have a lot to offer, and just really welcome, for the opportunity. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Our first question is, have you read our city strategic plan?
I did look through it.
Okay. Have you created a city strategic plan, and what is your approach?
So I've been involved in the strategic planning process several times, not as a citywide leading it. I participated in it at a city level. I have put together the strategic plan for the police department when I was there and kept that running for about 4 years. Then I've done it twice as a department head, once when I was the purchasing director and once as the human resources director. Really, I find the most critical thing with that is input. You need to get input from your stakeholders. You need to get input from at the city level, from your community. Sometimes there can be a lot of pushback, whether or not you're going to do surveys, and you might be afraid of what you find. But I find that the experience was best when it was open and transparent and you got as much input as you can, because that's what really gives you the opportunity to identify the real problems and concerns that the community has, so you can figure out what type of resources, funding you have to do to tackle those problems. So those are really the most important things I found, was getting good community input and then really rallying the staff around it, because nothing gets done if the staff isn't involved, and you have to get them to buy into it. So you want them to be stakeholders in the process. Also, you want them to be heard. They usually have great ideas on how to navigate the different challenges that are there. So the community input, the staff input, and then obviously the commission is where you're going to find the vision and the direction that you're looking for as staff to help mold the plan into what the priorities are going to be, what you're going to spend your funding on, how you're going to spend your funding, what the priorities are for whether it's going to be CIP improvements, whether it's going to be infrastructure improvements, whether it's software improvements, whatever you're going to do to try to deliver the best service. So it really, the experiences I found, it's kind of like a grassroots effort, and you roll it up to the commission, and then you work through those exercises to put together a new plan.
Thank you. What is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities? And what would you want to accomplish in your first 6 to 12 months?
That's a great question. So I think the first thing to do is get to know what the commissioner's perspectives are. The council is really guiding you. You're executing their vision. So it's trying to find out what's working, what's not working. Coming in from the outside, I think, has some real strong benefits and maybe some drawbacks too. You don't know all the inner workings. You don't have all the institutional knowledge. But that also gives you the opportunity to look at things with a fresh set of eyes. So I think it's about taking your time, being thorough, meeting with each of the elected officials, finding out what their priorities are, what their desires are, what their expectations are, and then doing the same thing internally with staff. What's been working, start at the top, work your way down. And you find that people, when you give them the opportunity to explain things and you really listen to what they have to say, they really will open up. I think that's really important. That also helps set the tone in the environment you're going to try to foster as the leader in the organization. Build those communication pathways with them so that they feel comfortable talking to you both as commissioners, because there might be competing demands. There might be different issues that one commissioner might want to go one way, another commissioner might want to go another way on. So you have to try to find some sort of common ground. It's the same thing with staff internally. Everyone's got their priorities. Everyone's got their issues that can be department specific. And you want to figure out how to take all of that and put it into something that you can work with.
And what would you like to accomplish in the first 6 to 12 months?
So I think it's a couple of things. I think the first thing would be putting together a comparison between what's been done before with the strategic plan, the budget, the comprehensive plan, get a good ground level review of what's been done, where things currently stand with those projects, how are things progressing with things we've already committed funding to, try to figure out if there's things that need to be tweaked on those so that you can get those projects done quicker, or if they're over budget, figure out how to control costs and get things back under control. And then sit with the new commissioners as a new manager and go over with them what their expectations are, what's in the plan from 2 or 3 years ago when it was formulated and put into place that needs tweaking, that needs adjustment. So I would say that would be important, maybe do some workshops and exercises with the commission to figure out what their objectives are, what their goals are, what changes they want to see. And then also get that information from staff so you can put together some sort of comprehensive plan and figure that out.
The city has a wide range of people and businesses. How will you develop an understanding of their perspectives and interests and build relationships in the community, like businesses, nonprofits?
So that's real important. They're one of your major constituents. So you want to make sure that you've got your businesses and your stakeholders aligned to the direction the city's moving in. So I think a lot of that has to do with community meetings, getting knowledge on who are the largest taxpayers in town, who are the smallest taxpayers in town, what are the issues that they're having with the city operation, what are they expecting out of city services that they're getting that they're not getting. So it's meeting with them. It's really pounding the pavement. You got to get out there. You got to meet with people. And I'm sure on staff, there's people that also have that experience already, and they've developed those connections and those relationships along with members of the commission. So it'd be leveraging those connections that are already in place to try and develop a rapport with those major stakeholders and groups. Sure. Sorry. And meet with those stakeholders and those business owners and those community leaders and figure out what they're seeing as issues in town and what you need to do to help address those things. So it would be a matter of getting the businesses together, maybe looking into I don't think you guys have sorry about that. No, I think that's it for that one.
And how would you engage the citizens in the decision-making process?
Decision-making in general, or?
Yes. Yeah. How would you engage the citizens?
So again, it's communication. It's having an open door policy, having an opportunity for the public to have access to you as the manager. You don't want to wall yourself off with staff and only get information through, the individuals that are working for you. You also want to be on the front lines. You want to have an opportunity to meet with the individuals. So be to go to homeowners association meetings, going to community meetings, attending community events, being around in the community, eat lunch in town, eat dinner in town, get to know people, that type of stuff. Go to the parks, enjoy the amenities that a lot of the communities enjoy, and you get a better sense of what they're living, what they're experiencing, and what they need, what services they're looking for.
How will you balance varied internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus, like 2 departments at odds? How would you advise the city commission of the options? And you can say we're just, it sounds like they're 2-part questions. They kind of are. So whatever makes it easier way to answer, I can start with I can repeat it if you'd like me to. So let me know.
I think a lot of that has to do with leadership. I think that it really comes down to the type of environment you foster. I've had the privilege of working for some really amazing leaders over the time that I've had with the city of Miramar and other places. And I find that, if you create a culture in the organization that encourages open communication, macro management. You're not micromanaging staff. You're giving them an opportunity to really grow and develop. They're going to develop the desire to want to communicate and be on board with you with taking on challenges that you have. So I think that creates a scenario where you as the manager have access to a lot of information that you might not otherwise have. I've worked for folks where, everyone's had a boss where you work for the boss and you're there, you're doing your time, just waiting for an opportunity for that boss to maybe move on. But then I've worked for amazing people that really just engage you and create an environment that you want to be there for. So I've tried to do that. I've been a department head over several departments over the last 15 years, worked in the manager's office where I was over department heads, had some department heads reporting to me. And I tried to do the same thing. It's a lot about giving people an opportunity to do well. If they make a mistake, you help them figure out how to recover from that mistake. Lots of times people don't even remember the mistake you made. It's how well you recovered from it. And, that creates an environment that I think works towards achieving those outcomes you're looking for. It just creates an environment where you're meeting with staff. They have open communication with you. They feel good about coming to work. That type of stuff takes care of itself. Usually they'll find other issues, other priorities that aren't being addressed, and they'll start tackling that on their own. It really comes from, I think, the leadership and the environment you start.
Tell us about your experience in development and redevelopment projects. What was your role? What were some of the outcomes and successes?
So the probably the largest project I was involved in was in our Miramar Town Center. At the time, there was a period of time where I was in the police department and we were working on trying to find a new location for our police department headquarters. The building was destroyed during Hurricane Wilma, our old station. It actually knocked over our 400 megahertz tower and it kind of peeled the roof back and water came in, and the building was from the 70s. And the chief at the time pushed really hard to get us out. And we were working in the Miramar Park of Commerce, and our police station was actually in a rented warehouse for about 5 or 6 years. So at the time I was, my job was support services commander. So I was over all of the civilian functions in the department, facilities, that type of stuff, purchasing, logistics. So I got very involved in the planning process with developing the new station. And a big part of that was several things we went through. It was trying to identify property owners in the city that we could either purchase property from and develop it where it wouldn't have a negative impact on the surrounding community. And that was a real challenging process. We put out requests for letters of interest for different property owners and developers that would be interested in partnering with the city. We ended up looking in our own Miramar Town Center project that was still under development at the time. And we looked at doing a wrap around the parking garage that was built right across the street from City Hall. And by that time, I became the purchasing director. So I was involved in the RFP process for the design build to bring in the architect and the contractor. And a lot of that had to deal with the complexities that were involved in the agreements that were laid out in the Miramar Park of Commerce. I'm sorry, in the Miramar Town Center complex, because there were several different owners, Rock Kim and some others, that we had to negotiate contracts with them or in the original site plan development, portions of the property were originally going to be owned by them so that they could build out the shell of the retail space and sell that back. We had to negotiate a contract with them where we were originally going to let them, we would build it, they would rent it out, we'd split some of the proceeds, then we ended up buying it back from them. So I was involved in a lot of that process with the developer, but it was more on the purchasing side. I was involved in that mainly on the purchasing side. I wasn't on the development side of the house, but I was pretty involved in that project. And then obviously the actual building of the police station, which is a huge building, it's 80,000 square foot building.
Do you have experience with the public-private funding partnership?
Yeah, we were involved in several of those and several opportunities that a couple of them never really developed, but we did look at doing PPP several times. We looked at doing We were working at one time with the Women's Tennis Association to develop a portion of Regional Park and bring in a Hall of Fame and a museum from tennis and some tennis courts there and a hotel that ended up falling through. But we got very involved in that process. I was involved in working with the city attorney to put out there's a requirement when you're doing those where you have to put it out and notify people. You're not allowed to just take in the unsolicited proposals, and I was involved in that process.
Describe a time you had to manage a crisis situation in a city setting.
Sure. So a big one I was involved in was after Hurricane Irma came through. I was the chief operating officer for the city. So I was responsible along with the ACM over operations to do all the debris cleanup, which was a huge project. We had to find a location to have the contractor process all of the debris as it came in, evaluate the tonnage and the truck sizes and dispose of the material. And we ended up taking over a big part of Regional Park to do that, which was complicated because we had a contractor that was running the amphitheater. We kind of took over part of their parking lot in the and I was all involved in that. I was involved day to day. I mean, that we worked like 24 hours a day for weeks on that. And I can say that with all the hard work we did, we were one of the first cities that got all the debris cleaned up off the major arteries in the street and most of the side streets. So we had to work out last minute deals with several of the haulers and the other companies that come along behind them to follow behind them and track everything. And then we had an issue that happened at the end of that where all along Island Drive, which is one of the larger city streets through historic Miramar, where the contractor was coming through there and just cutting down trees on the right of way, not on an area where it was damaged or anything like that. And we stopped them, and then I had to negotiate a deal with them to come back, pay the city damages for that, and replace all the trees, which we were able to successfully do.
Long-term financing of city operations will require a range of funding options. How do you approach financing and budget management? What are some of the techniques or tools that you found effective?
You're talking about for your regular operational budget or for the CIP or just in general?
Just in general, really.
So I've been involved in the budgeting process in the city for years. As the purchasing director, I was consulted often because most of the money in a city goes towards either service contracts, construction contracts, or personnel costs. So I've been involved in that as the purchasing director and the human resources director. So I've, over the years, worked very closely with the manager's office. And then for a time I was in the manager's office, where one of my primary jobs was helping to put the budget together for 2 budget cycles. And it's a complicated task. You've got a lot of revenue that's coming in from different sources. You have to make sure that you have good projections on those revenues, that you're confident in those projections. And you also have to make sure that you're not just spending money on new stuff. You know, it's sexy to build a new building and do park renovations and create new stuff, but you also have to worry about the roof. You have to worry about, you know, for a period of time in Miramar, there was so much new construction of city property. We were very fortunate. We didn't really have to worry about that. But then as that infrastructure started wearing down, you know, the roofs last 15, 20 years, they start taking on damage. There's storms that come through, parking lots, roadways. So, you know, it was a combination of looking into all of those different things, having a strategic approach to it. So it's not just worrying about the money for today. Every time we negotiate a union contract and we're committing the organization to 3 years of growth for the employees, it's wonderful for the employees if we can negotiate a competitive contract, but we have to be able to afford it. Same thing with service contracts. So, you know, you might do service contracts for routine things like janitorial services or housekeeping services or your hauler contract. But those things have escalating costs, and that all eats into the budget. So you have to pay attention to all that stuff to help figure out how to fund the priorities of the commission, how to make payroll, how to meet your debt service, how to meet your pension obligations, and still have enough money left over to run your operation. So it's a lot of, like I've been talking about, it's communication, it's a lot of analysis, it's a lot of review of your revenues, your expenses, trends in the community, trends at the national level, what's going on with cost of living and other indicators, and trying to benchmark all that stuff so that you can have a model that's looking at 3 years, 5 years, maybe even 8 years, so you can trend it and say, okay, well, if we make certain decisions, if we change the fire fee, if we don't raise the millage rate, if we look at doing other revenue bonds, if we don't finance revenue bonds, or refinance our bonds, what does that do for us? If there's opportune times in the market where it makes sense to go out and refinance some of your bonds and lower your debt service to free up some money, these are all things that you have to explore and pay attention to. So, and probably the most important thing is you have to have a really good budget director who knows what they're doing, who knows all the rules, all the ins and outs. So again, it comes back to making sure that as the manager, you have a really strong staff around you that can help you make those decisions.
And what are some of the techniques or tools that you found effective?
So we've done zero-based budgeting processes that are sometimes good. We look at forecasting and modeling is in Miramar where I've been, that's been the name of the game. We're always forecasting. We're always looking at even bringing in a consultant sometimes to help you do that modeling and look, okay, so here's what's trending. Here's what's going on nationally. Here's what's going on locally. Do we want to, and do an exercise and say, okay, if we raise the millage rate and explain this to the commission, or if we keep the millage rate the same, or if we spend money on this project instead of that project, or we move money around. So it's a combination of going through the budget process itself.
Thank you.
Yeah.
What guides your management of personnel? How do you approach hiring, performance evaluation, discipline, motivation, just to build the most effective team?
So again, it comes down to leadership. It comes down to being honest. It comes down to, I think, setting an environment and a culture that encourages employees to take chances, be innovative. Don't just do things because it's the way we've always done them. Look at new ways to do things. And like I said, I've been very fortunate to have been in an organization where I worked for some real and still work for some really amazing people. That's the name of the game, is create an environment that's really your responsibility as a leader. The biggest impact you have is how you communicate with people and how you establish the environment you're going to have them work in. So if you do that well, and you create an environment that people want to come to work at and they're encouraged. So you focus on development, you focus on accountability, you focus on growth. You don't let employees stagnate. You can build from there. You can build evaluation models that are fair. You can build compensation models that are fair. You can be competitive and know that your staff is going to do the best they can because you're trying to look out for them and do the best you can for them. So it's a lot of service, being in service, a lot of servant leadership. I'm really big on that. I think that's a really important style where you're here as a resource for the people that are really doing the work. It's easy to sit and argue and debate and throw ideas out there, but what really matters are the people that are doing the work. And those are the employees in the organization. So I've been a human resources director for about 8 years. I started in HR. That's what most of my education's in. So I'm very passionate about that. And I've seen the fruits of that. If you focus on that, if you focus on the employees, you be an employee-centric organization, worry about employees, families, their ability to do their job, they're going to take care of that stuff. If you pay them well and you pay them fair and competitive and you give a good environment for them to work in, they're going to come to work and they're going to be more productive. They're going to be more focused on the work that they have at hand.
How would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps do you take to ensure you're communicating effectively with all commissioners?
I think that's probably the number one job of being the city manager. I mean, I've watched a lot of city managers over the years, and the biggest complaint I've seen when city managers end up losing their job is because they didn't do a good job communicating. They created a situation that looks like they were favoring one commissioner or one group over another. So I think it's about, that's probably a lot of the time you spend as the manager is sending messages out to the community, to the city council, calling them, having weekly meetings with them, having regular communication back and forth with them, taking the call that comes at all the crazy hours of the day and night to keep them informed, to keep them aware of what's going on. Probably the worst thing you can do is have a resident or a business owner approach a commissioner or a mayor with a situation in town that you knew about and they didn't. So I think that constant communication is critical to making sure everyone's informed and they're making decisions based on good information. So that's another part of it too, is being accurate. You don't want to just give information. Oh, I heard this. You want to make sure that the information you're providing is vetted, it's accurate, it makes sense, you're timely with it.
Thank you. How would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the public or the commission?
So I can lean back on several of my experiences with that. As an HR director, one of the unfortunate parts of the job is when you have to terminate an employee or demote an employee. So you have to develop a certain comfort level and a thick skin with being able to pass along information that isn't the most pleasant. And in the role as the city manager, just like any leadership role, it falls on you to do that. Sometimes you're going to take the hit for the organization. You're going to take the hit for the mayor, for the commission, for another employee on the commission. So who works for the city. So, that just comes with part of the job. You have to be honest. You have to communicate clearly. You have to be accurate with the information you're giving, and you have to be fair. And I think that's what it comes down to. It comes down to being willing to pass along tough information to people, even if they don't want to hear it. But they need to hear
it. What is your vision for the city?
That's a great question. I had a feeling you were going to ask something like that. So I think it's a couple things. I think, first of all, my experience in all the years I've been with government is the city commission is the one that sets the vision. They're going to set the priorities. They're going to be the ones that are most accountable to the public, to the constituents. They're the ones that get voted in. The manager serves at your pleasure. So the manager doesn't come in and not have input, but I think the priority is going to be first what the commission is looking for. And it's also probably a facilitating role. Like if there's different disparate ideas that are coming from the commission, how do we take those ideas, formulate things that can actually be delivered, and work with the commission, similar to what you have in your strategic plan, to actionable items. How do we take these? Here's where we are now. Everyone understands where we're at now, but here's where we want to be. Everyone gets elected with certain political agendas that they're trying to achieve for their community and their district. So how do you make those things happen? So it's a matter of meeting with the elected officials, tying money to it. So there's budget. That's a big part of it. You can't do a lot of stuff without staff, and you can't do a lot of stuff without budget. So you have to tie staff to it. You have to commit organizations, resources to it. So it comes down to that. It comes down to figuring out what the vision of the commission is, finding those cohesive ideas that transcend individual priorities that can become the main focus and priority for the organization. And then also try to figure out how to slide in those other important things that might be more specific to a particular district or a particular stakeholder, and prioritize those with the commission, similar to what you have in a strategic plan. Your budget, every year you're doing a budget document that's almost in itself a business plan. So you're prioritizing what you're spending your money on that year, what you're chipping away at. And I think it also has to do with input. You can't do this without having constant ears and eyes on the ground. You have to know what's going on. You have to know what's working, what's not working, what changes, what tweaks need to be made to the plan, to the budget, that type of stuff. So I think that helps keep moving you towards that big vision, that big goal that you have set with the commission.
Are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
Yes. So like I've said, I've spent the first 3 years of my professional career were here. And Deerfield, even back in the 90s, was somewhat diverse. I work for the city of Miramar, which is a very, very diverse city. I mean, we have folks from all walks of life there, a very large Caribbean population, a very large Hispanic population, and different languages, different cultures. And you have to be willing to be open-minded, open heart, approach things with compassion. So even if people come to you with problems that might be problems that are specific to their community or their heritage that you might not be aware of or understand, you have to accept that they're real to them. So you have to take the time to figure out what those issues are. Are there services that we can provide that will help address those problems? So I've also found in my time that, you surround yourself with the best people you can find. And the more diverse those people are also gives you a very strong sense of communication and understanding that you wouldn't get if you're just making decisions kind of in an echo chamber where you're just talking to folks that walk the same life that you walk. You want to have people from different walks of life, different experiences, different education levels. I have a doctorate degree, but it doesn't mean that I'm any smarter than someone who's got street smarts and know-how. And all those things are important. So, you don't just look at it and say, oh, well, on paper, it's this or it's that. You want to have a team around you and you want to that match the community you're serving, I think is very important, but that also just brings in different points of view.
Okay. What is your biggest weakness and how would you overcome it?
So I think one of my biggest challenges I've had in my life is being a good listener. I hear everything. I don't always listen. And I've gotten much better at that over the years. I don't know that my wife would agree. But hopefully she's not watching, so she doesn't know. But that's a challenge is, and in a role like this, that's probably the majority of the job is listening so that you can formulate the best possible recommendations and make the best possible decisions. And it takes time and patience. And I think that that's a challenge I've learned to overcome over the years. And then second to that, my city manager tells me a lot that I talk a lot. So, but I am a college professor on the side and I have to figure out how to fill up 3 hours of class.
Excellent. Thank you. If you'd like to have any parting words or wrap things up.
No, this is a great experience. Absolutely not what I was expecting. I didn't know I'd be so close to you guys. I'm used to it being further back, and up higher. So this is very interesting, the whole eye level thing. But it's been a wonderful experience, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity and thank Jim. He was very professional in the process, and I look forward to the outcome.
Excellent. Thank you, Mr. Cross.
All right, we will get Mr. Jason Davis next.
You guys need to take a break at all? Yeah. You okay with everything? Huh? I'm telling you. That work for you guys, the pace? Fuzzy whammo. You created your own alter ego.
But I do.
All right, Mr. Jason Davis.
Hi, Mr. Davis. If you just kind of give us an overview, tell us a little bit about yourself, and then we're going to ask you a few questions and we'll let you wrap it up at the end.
Very good. Jason, I moved to Florida in '84 and went to Florida State to play baseball. That obviously did not shake out as I had hoped. So finished there with a bachelor's in criminology. Just didn't want to go into the police work. My brother took that route. So I started in private security and designed security departments for facilities of mass public assembly. So casinos, hotels, residential, convention centers, that sort of thing. So I would hire all their staff, train them, hire the director and move on to the next. That was just my role. Was recruited by Palm Beach County to come in and do something similar. So I started with Palm Beach County in 2007 in the facilities department. And during this time, I was still trying to figure out what I wanted to do. I knew I didn't want to do security or police. So I was working on several different degrees. I went to school for computer science. I didn't want to sit in an office all day, not my style. Exercise science, nutrition, and then ultimately just started working on a master's in business and just went that route. And then did a doctorate both here at Nova and did 12 years in facilities. But facilities there is it's just a massive empire. So I had fleet, which was well over 1,000 vehicles, real estate, capital, facilities management. So it was a pretty big operation. Then I promoted into water utilities as a director and ran the utilities for division director for 4 years, and then took a deputy county administrator in St. Lucie County. Still just plugging along with different certifications just to stay current with best trends. So I worked on a PMP. Now I'm doing a government finance certification, which is incredibly intense if you're not an accountant. But just constantly pushing myself to stay current, learn new stuff. And that's pretty much a quick summary.
Excellent. Have you read our city strategic plan?
Yes, I have it in the other room there.
Have you created a city strategic plan, and what is your approach?
So yes, both in Palm Beach and St. Lucie County, we actually just wrapped up. I got some feedback from the board. We had new elections, so I wanted, make sure we're getting the vision of the board. So we are going to sit back down with the board next month after getting some feedback last month, sorry. But we're going to sit down with them in early March, so a little bit more than a month, but rewrite our strategic plan with the new players involved. But then I use that really drives my budget and that sort of thing as well. So.
And what is your approach to it?
In what regard? Outside of taking.
Like, what is your approach in creating one? What do you think are some important keys when creating a strategic plan?
So again, gauging the temperature of the citizens we serve, so we get some feedback in that regard. The board really drives our mission. You know, we have an existing incoming board, wanted to change a few of the mission critical items. So we're working that way. And then I also take feedback from department directors. You know, they're out in the field every day. So that sort of thing. So, I mean, taking the feedback and then creating it from there and going. Yeah.
Perfect.
Okay.
What is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities?
Process improvement is kind of like my passion. I enjoy that the most, but I like to, so for example, any new place I've ever worked, I like to sit down with the department heads and I call it just like the 5-minute speech, so to speak. One, we lay the rules of the road. You know, what are your expectations of me? What are my expectations of you, et cetera? If I don't know your expectations, I can't meet them, right? So I want to make sure I'm meeting the team's expectations. We talk about what their 5-year plan is. You know, I can't help them get there if they don't tell me what it is. We talk about trust, and then, of course, I'm tailing off now. So there's one other thing was the most important part of that little 5-minute meeting, the process improvement. So I like to see, you know, the questions I ask are, what are we really good at? Because I want to keep that gravy train rolling. And what needs some love, you know, get the feedback from the people that do it all day. And then I like to take, you know, show me the data, you know, data-driven decisions. So, Palm Beach County, I was fairly fortunate that I had some very robust softwares that allowed it a little bit easier. Here, it's basically word of mouth in St. Lucie County. And we're implementing some tools that will allow us to gather more data so we can drive some of those decisions. But yeah, policy and procedural improvement policy. Yep, sorry.
Can you speak a little louder?
Sure.
Thank you.
Okay, sorry.
I'm having a little difficulty hearing you.
All right, done.
What would you want to accomplish 12 months on the job?
So again, sit down with the team, but I mean, right now, I'm not sure where your schedule is, but I'm in budget. So I need to dive in, own that. Some of the critical, you know, I printed out some of the stuff that you're working on, the CRA stuff, and then what the residents say we're doing well. You know, this is out of your strategic plan areas where the residents want to see improvements. So we really want to start hitting some of those metrics. I like to evaluate for efficiency. So I think where I need to credit my team right now is the county to the north and the county to the south. They have way less population, more budget to play with because their taxing structure is different, but I'm running with substantially less FTEs. We're very efficient. And that's just, again, process improvements. I enjoy that. How creative can I be with the money that I have to spend and still get the best result?
Thank you.
Very good.
The city has a wide range of people and businesses in it. How will you develop an understanding of their perspectives and interests and build relationships in the community, like with our nonprofits or businesses, that kind of thing?
Again, soft skills, I think, is what I bring to the table the most with, you know, my background. I've presented to HOA boards. I've presented to citizen academies. I like to get out there. I've even given my personal cell phone to citizens. You know, they like to have direct access to me, and it doesn't bother me. They can call me 20. That's the job. Building those relationships, making sure you're working with the public and you're a servant. So I mean, I just, again, 24/7. If you're familiar with an open door policy, I would change that for myself. If the fire code allowed it and I have a no door policy, I just take it off the hinges. You can come see me anytime you want for anything.
How do you engage citizens in the decision-making process?
Don't know that I wholly understand your question. I mean, they'll come to my board meetings. They can access me.
So what would be your best way to engage the residents when it comes to building consensus or getting feedback on any type of thing that we do? Is it meetings? Is it?
I mean, the gamut, the sky's the limit. You know, some people enjoy or prefer phone calls. Some people prefer face-to-face. I mean, I have citizens come to my office directly sometimes if they want to talk about certain things, and we can get to the root cause if it's a problem, or we can identify a path. You know, for example, I had a resident come to me because she felt we didn't have enough programs for special needs. So I had her come visit and we went over some of the things that she wanted to implement, and I could work with my parks director. And if it's things that we couldn't do, I could work with the municipalities in our county. So, I mean, again, the sky's the limit. So whatever that individual or group is more comfortable with, I'm fine. Yeah.
How will you balance varied internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus? Like, we have two departments that might be at odds. How would you advise the city commission of those options?
I mean, I just give examples that just would, I think will give you some context. You know, again, my facilities background, we were building a jail. And one department wanted to approach for video visitation, another department had another, and one was not my department, but I was ultimately the decision driver. So, you know, gather the information. I wanted to listen to see what was most efficient, where the return on investment is going to be. Ultimately, I went with the sister department. But, you know, I wanted to listen and make sure I made the right decision and then presented that to that board. Both approaches were outstanding, bulletproof, but the other approach, in my opinion, after digesting everything, that put me in the role of what I call decision driver. You know, I listened to it. And if you guys can't come to consensus without me getting involved, then that's my role, is to make the decision. And from there, the team has to support the decision. So.
Tell us about your experience in development and redevelopment projects. What was your role and what were some of the outcomes and successes?
So I've had a couple of CRAs. Is that where you're going with that? Yeah, okay. So a couple of CRAs where, you know, right now my budget, day one, October 1, it's $10 million to go to our CRA. So try to work with both municipalities on how to implement that, whether it's streets, you know, areas of blight. Trying to, you know, work on infrastructure, that sort of thing, and then investing that in what that community feels is what is the best avenue for them to invest that money. I can't tell them what to do with it, but we can sit down and, you know, kind of get some synergies. If they want to do a road project, maybe we can tie in our road projects and not tear the road up twice, you know, those sorts of things, or infrastructure projects of any sort. Am I going down the right road with that? I'm not quite sure. You know, that's just how I work with the municipalities and driving those.
Yeah, have you worked on any projects that or any experience with like public and private funding partnerships at all?
So I have a Economic Development Council, and their role is to try and bring in what we target as industries of, targeted industries. So right now we're looking at, you know, we have a large boating community. So we want people to build boats. We want data centers. So we try to bring those in and then work with them on job creation. So targeting that, where I have some pushback with that group, is they're kind of a quasi judicial governmental agency, and they'll pitch, you know, a project that brings 17 jobs that doesn't pay well. So those sorts of things. And they want the county to offset the taxes and pay some of the salaries. So I want them to work a little bit better on, it's a win for both both parties.
So you've had some experience
Oh, yeah.
in that, yeah. Describe a time when you had to manage a crisis situation in a city setting.
I mean, I've worked in my EOC for all 20 years. I started in the logistics and then moved into utilities, and now I serve in the executive role. But I mean, hurricanes, tornadoes, pandemic, chemical response. I had another one that I'm drawing wildfire. So anytime they activate, that's been my role I've lived at the EOC for weeks at a time, a couple times.
Long-term financing of city operations will require a range of funding options.
Sure.
How do you approach financing and budget management?
I mean, my budget team's fantastic. They're absolute rock stars, but I try to look at 5, 10, 20 years, identify it. I like to, you know, I prefer to go as a pay as I go on some of these projects. So if we have some stuff coming off the debt roll, we can put that towards projects in the out years. And when we had, you know, great recession, I had to punt on a few projects if I could still get parts and training was available and that sort of thing, and just move the projects out. So you got to be creative. And then, you know, even though I had my utility, I had 400 million in the bank, I was still really good at tracking down grants So I mean, I just, every avenue I could find, and then if you have to bond a project, penny sales tax, I mean, I've done several different flavors.
So what are some of the techniques or tools that you've found most effective for doing those?
Well, just for the penny sales tax, just put it out to see what the flavor of the community is. Fortunately, I think, you know, they were very forward thinking and approved that. Same thing with the gas tax. That's coming up we're reviewing that to see what we can do with that. Also have tourist development tax. We really try to chase some bed nights. Every avenue you can think of trying to track down money that's not my money. I also have several taxing districts I have to answer to, so I have a lot that way as well.
What guides your management of personnel? How do you approach hiring, performance reviews, evaluation, discipline, motivation to build the most effective team?
Again, soft skills. I'm a servant leader. You know, I genuinely enjoy, you know, some of my biggest successes are taking people that have zero experience. And what I'm looking for is that hard charger that wants to come in, and you create your path and I'll help you get there. So we sit down and we identify where you want to be and the path to get there, and whether that's tuition reimbursement or volunteering with the fire department, if you want to go that route, whatever, we figure that out. So I genuinely enjoy sitting down and helping people get to their end game, whatever that may be. So we look at it from a few different directions. You know, I've written job descriptions, I've done pay studies. We want to have, you know, a happy workforce. So anything that brings value. I've created incentive programs where, you know, our IT department, I don't want them to get stagnant, especially in that field. It changes every day, right? So if you're in this pay grade, you pick 2 of these certifications and you get a 5%. If you promote, you go right back to the pool and you pick 2 new certifications and you get 5%, and so on and so forth. So that helps me with succession planning, staying current with best trends. Creativity plan, bonuses. I don't like to use the word bonus in government, but it's basically what it is. So a great example I can give you is in the utility, one of my guys created an algorithm that allowed me to save $17,000 a year for a lift station. I didn't have to pay for a service and pay for the equipment. So he was put in for this award. County administrator awarded him and he got $2,000. But it saved, you see how it saved the county. So it reinforces that creativity. And again, it just creates that environment where the staff wants to come work there.
How would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps would you take to ensure you're communicating effectively with all commissioners?
So right now I meet with my board every Monday individually, an hour each. So we go over the upcoming agenda. I talk about, you know, any spicy topics that they want to talk about, any spicy topics that I need to give them, put on their radar that might pop up. But they all have access to me 24/7. So if there's something that they need to flesh out, call, email, text. So I'm, again, very open, approachable.
What would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular? Excuse me, I apologize. How would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the public or commission?
I mean, it's a bit of a loaded question. You know, I serve at the will of the board. So, I mean, I present the options. I'll make my recommendation. But at the same time, if the will of the board is opposite of my approach, I mean, that's, as long as it's not illegal, immoral, and unethical, I support it. I mean, I've had that happen several times where I thought we were going down a path, and then the last second, the board kind of went back on me, and it is what it is. You know, I support the decision at that point in time. I'm not going to undermine it in any capacity, but serve at the will of the board.
What is your vision for the city?
So I have a win at everything mentality. It's just how I am. So again, sit down, figure out where I can be creative, where I can be efficient, you know, how can I be better every single day? And that's how I'm wired. Like, I can't stop that. I don't know if it's the baseball coach in me or just, you know, my upbringing, but win at everything. So there's 67 counties right now. My mindset is be the top county And it's my train of thought. So, and it's the mantra that I pitch to the team every day, win at everything. Just so, kind of a generic answer, but that's just how I'm wired.
Are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I want that different perspectives, it's kind of sad that it's 2025 and we still have to have those kinds of conversations, but I'm all about, I like seeing different perspectives. So, yeah.
What is your biggest weakness and how do you overcome it?
I think, see 360 evaluations, I put a lot of stock in those because, for example, here in St. Lucie County, I drafted it, but I had the HR manager the director send it out. So it wasn't for me. And I wanted it anonymous. I wanted to understand the perspectives and the feedback that I got. And I know it's one of my downfalls is I'm 1,000 miles an hour in 1,000 different directions all the time. So I'm constantly trying to think of ways that we can generate revenue. So I'll send the parks director a text saying, hey, what do you think about a hole-in-one competition? And then the next day I send a text, hey, what do you think about a damage room where we take all the computers that we're going to surplus and charge people a fee to go in it. So it's just that my mind is always like going but I also understand that we have a lot of projects going on. So the feedback was you have too many ideas. And the way I address that is I don't know how to turn that off, but at the same time, I don't force my ideas. I bounce it off of you. If you think it's a good idea, we go down that path. If it's not, we table it. And then I'll bring it up next month.
Thank you. Okay, how would you like to wrap things up? Would you like your final words for this?
Oh, well, outside of, I mean, doing some homework here, I saw the CRA projects, just a comparison, Palm Beach is that's where I kind of cut my teeth in government. That's a 1.6 million population. I had an $8 billion budget. My capital budget was 10 billion. I can't even remember how many, it was like 9,000 FTE, 12,000 FTEs. And then I go into St. Lucie County and I had 388,942 FTEs. And then my budget's right under 800 million. So I think I bring a lot to the table in terms of the size. And I've heard some people say that, oh, if you go to a smaller place, it's easier. I don't think it is. I think you have to be more creative to get to the same. It's not easier. It's smaller budget, less people to do the same amount of work. So, but the fact that I've done it on a massive scale, an intermediate scale, I think I bring some things to some skills there. And then I think just my background is I've forced myself and I enjoy it. I have a very strong background in HR. I'm not a SHRM certified person. But I have, again, I work a lot in the HR realm. I have a strong project management background. I've built the largest capital project in the history of Palm Beach County. That was my project, the jail expansion. I have so a PMP, I didn't need it, but I went and sat for it. I'm very strong with budgets, but I'm going to go sit for the certification anyway. I don't need it, but it allows me to have an intelligent conversation with those various disciplines. So I'm constantly pushing myself to learn a lot and maybe not necessarily be a subject matter expert, but I can at least have an intelligent conversation with the subject matter experts and I can take their input and we can do some pretty cool things if we're all rowing in the same direction. I think that's just me in a nutshell.
Excellent. I do have one.
Sure.
You mentioned that smaller budget is harder. Do you think, you're used to having larger budgets. Do you think you'll be able to make your approach to that scalable when you're talking about a city that has a much smaller budget?
Absolutely. I mean, that was I was giving you that analogy going from, I won't say I had unlimited funds in Palm Beach, but I had unlimited. As long as I did my budget correctly, I pretty much did every single project. I came to St. Lucie County, substantially smaller. It was almost like I was telling the department directors, I want you to do less work because I have to take these projects off the table. We don't have the money. So it's just a matter of due diligence. What can I be creative with? What can I move out to an out year? So that's very similar.
Excellent. Thank you.
Very good. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Get the next candidate. Horus.
Sounds great. Mr. Rester.
Are you gonna eat that candy? Oh, thanks. Need an energy boost. Young lady, isn't it past your bedtime? It's it's past mine.
Think you need some more.
No, I'm good. I'm good. I don't want my sugar to go through the roof.
Yeah, name.
Did you get to talk to that lady? Todd? You did? About the windows? Yeah, okay. That's the woman. I told her she needed an attorney. I can't give her legal advice.
It's like it got in there, so it's gonna be there. Decisions, not losing paper.
Tomorrow, you're gonna go. I've got enough experience with them now that I think I'll say it.
All right, it's your fourth and final candidate.
Excellent. Hello there, sir.
Mayor, Vice Mayor, Commissioners.
We're going to give you that, but we're going to let you do a little bit of an intro, tell us about yourself, and then we're going to ask you some questions and get to wrap it up at the end.
Okay. Good afternoon. I'm Horus McHugh, your Deputy City Manager. As a matter of introduction, I've got 33 years of broad municipal experience. Started 12 years in the city of Fort Lauderdale, which is 160,000 population. 2 years focusing in the public services department. In that area, I did utilities engineering and public works related projects. And then 2 years in the fire rescue department, starting the accreditation process, doing billing and some other issues there. For the next 21 years, I've worked at the executive level in various cities, and this at the executive level, meaning as a CAO city manager, deputy city manager, or assistant city manager. 4 years in Plantation, just about 5 years which is larger than this city, 5 years in Miami Gardens, which is a startup city, and 12 and a half years as a deputy city manager or assistant in Deerfield, Coral Springs, Oakland Park, or North Miami. Incidentally, in Miami Gardens, that was a startup city, recently annexed. I was the 5th employee. And when I left there, it was over 500 employees. So I was instrumental in a lot of that. And I'll give some examples a little later on if I'm allowed to.
Okay, your first question. Have you read our city strategic plan?
I have read the city strategic plan. I was instrumental in completion of the strategic plan. And that was one of the first issues that I was assigned to when I was here. As a matter of fact, I was in the training session prior to signing my enrollment papers. So yes, I have, yes.
And what is your approach to a city strategic plan?
My approach to the city strategic plan is to get the plan itself aligned with everything that we're doing, identify where it fits into the strategic plan, and present that from a staff perspective, present that as a policy perspective in terms of saying, here are some issues, here's a plan, here's some issues, here's how they align with the plan. Present that and allow that to be shared and adopted by the commission, embraced by the commission, as well as with staff. In terms of execution and implementation of the plan, what I did in conjunction with the former city manager is developed also the SHARP initiative, we collaboratively, which is telling the staff how we would like to engage and how we would like to get the things implemented and done. So yes, you have the strategic plan and you have how are you going to implement the strategic plan.
What is your management approach to evaluation of existing city operations and activities? What would you like to accomplish in the first 6 to 12 months on the job?
Well, my approach is collaboration. Certainly we have qualified, capable, and competent staff, directors. They have experience. In addition, what I would do is overlay my experience. Some of the things that I would do is very quickly meet with the elected officials, get their ideas, get their vision, get their priorities, to some degree engage the community and get some input on the issues that they would be having interest and priorities for, and then move towards developing policies and offer those recommendations to the commission. There are specific areas that I think there's a need or there's capacity. Certainly some of the issues, for example, is responsible development, mix of residential downtown. Some of those are the need for economic development and redevelopment, whether those are in the beach and the Barrier Island, whether it's in the core central area, whether it's here. Some of those are redevelopment of aging infrastructure. City Hall here is a good example of that. Some of those are enhancing our quality of life in our parks and leisure services through a parks master plan and moving that through, addressing our aging infrastructure and the increasing capacity or replacing the aging infrastructure. Some of that would minimize or mitigate flooding or mitigate conveyance, improving our plants. Community engagement itself is another area that of potential, and certainly financing the needs of all of this. Certainly all these are aspirational, but it's very, very important to figure out a way how to fund the needs. So these are all areas that I would be looking at specifically addressing, getting the input of the commission, but at least in my mind, identifying those as some of the long-term areas that would need to be addressed.
The city has a wide range of people and businesses. How will you develop an understanding of their perspectives and interests and build relationships in the community, like with our businesses or nonprofits, that type of situation?
I think it is important to be active in the community, and some of that would be at the homeowners association, whether it's for the residential, at the business activities, whether it's chamber of commerces or recognition events. There are certain times, for example, that the people like the Broward Alliance or other entities are engaged in various aspects, being involved and present there. And we do get invited to events like that that I have been participating in. And I think those are critical to be visible, present, engaging, meeting with the community, be active in a manner that they will feel comfortable as businesses, coming and discussing issues, reporting issues, sharing concerns, and then also getting input in terms of input that they may have and opportunities for improving the community and the business entities in the business community.
How would you engage citizens in the decision-making process?
Certainly some of the things that have been done is communicating. We have the bucketgram, we have website, we have activities, we have opportunities for polls, we have surveys. So these are all ways of getting the information and outreaching to the community, getting the information, being active in terms of district meetings or town hall meetings, whether it's projects or specific issues. I know the commissioners have been intentional about various district meetings, but in instances where there's information to share. And I know recently I was involved in the 1045 project. So that's an example of information to share. Providing that information, educating the community and allowing them to ask questions, allowing them to be a little bit more aware. Some of the opportunities also involve, I know as present on the Adams podcast, that's another opportunity of engaging various sectors of the community themselves, and getting the input, getting the feedback, and being visible there.
Which business would you go to first and why?
Which business? I think we have a variety of business. It's like, your kids, they're all important. And it would be hard to pick a favorite. I know the restaurant and the hotel in the industry certainly are in, they've been vocal, they're organized. The beach businesses, they've been organized. It's probably easier to address that because they're organized. But I think there are businesses in the central city that need assistance, and it's a matter of engaging and trying to connect with them, allowing them to feel comfortable and allowing them to come and share, and then moving through offering some improvement or some opportunities, whether it's training, whether it's workshops, whether it's resources, working with them to find out what the specific needs are, and then based on that, working through, moving them through. Wouldn't necessarily say it's one business versus the other, but I think those are all areas that the Cove is another area that's, centralized, that, they're vocal in terms of some of the needs.
How will you balance varied internal priorities or strategies to achieve consensus, like two departments at odds? And how would you advise the city commission of the options?
So I think even if departments are at odds, the recommendation is up to the city manager. That's my role as it relates to that. So my role is to look at the long-term plan, the strategic plan, look at the policies and priorities of the commission, take the input from the directors, and often it's varied. Financial needs are going to be different than the operational needs and different than human resource needs. So we'll balance all of that. I think the role of the city manager is then to put that together in conjunction with the individual community needs as well as the political needs, and offer a recommendation to the city commission. The recommendation should be comprehensive. It's not that, this department wants this and that department wants something else. It's a matter of, here's the issue, here are some of the impacts of the issues, the pros and the cons, and collectively, I'm putting together a package telling you what the pros and the cons are and the consequences, and here's my recommendation.
Tell us about your experience in development and redevelopment projects. What was your role and what were the outcomes and successes?
So in development, in city of Oakland Park, which is a city of 42,000 just about, I went there and there was deficiency in the infrastructure along some of the main corridor. And that was something that putting together a plan, worked to do a $27 million project, which involved water and sewer. Did a bond for that, or initiated a bond and got that coordinated. As part of the process, in addition to the 27 million, I think there was some additional funding that was put together for the above ground, that helped in terms of landscaping, tree beautification, et cetera, et cetera. Collectively, at the same time, we moved forward with the CRA and some initiatives in the CRA that helped to redevelop that entire corridor, which ended up at Funky Buddha. And collectively, in collaboration with the CRA, the infrastructure, the bond, put the project together, work through educating the commission, work through educating the community, work through the bond process itself, from the financial component, got the funding and went through, I was there 7.5 years, and I think a lot of that was accomplished during that process.
And what was your experience? What has your experience been with public and public/private funding partnerships? Public-private partnership, I can't recall any. I know one of the first things you do is assess the needs, and I've had the opportunity of doing that in Plantation, for example. One of the things I did first is to put together a needs assessment when I went there, capital needs assessment, which is probably the first thing you need to do. What are the needs? From that, we were able to develop a $62 million needs assessment, which addressed issues in public works, parks, and fire rescue. Based on that, brought the needs to the commission. The commission decided that all the needs they would prioritize, they wanted the entire 60 million. So based on that, went through, did a bond, again, did the whole bond process and initiated a 60 million process, which includes the development of the projects, developing it into 3 different tranches, and based on that, educate the community to approve all 3 bonds. It's 3 bonds at the same time, totaling 60 million. Started moving through, developing a timeline, doing bond ratings, bond validation, et cetera, and started the projects and moving them through, keeping them on a timeline. So that's an example of the project side of it. I've not been actively involved, to my recollection, of a P3, where you got the private sector coming in. The extension of that is, we talk about the project side, but the extension then is, in one instance, communicating. Well, I'm sorry, let me take that back. One P3 I've been involved in is your 1045 project. I was involved in the assessment of some of the needs that occur in terms of framing the needs in terms of recommendations of the desired product, forming, being part of the evaluation committee, accepting the input, evaluating it, offering a recommendation to the city commission. The city commission did approve the project, and based on that, a referendum was done. Part of the project that's in terms of educating the community, and then based on that, the referendum passed. Currently involved in regular meetings, probably every 2 weeks. Thank you. Yeah, they give you a time limit on that.
That's the time.
Finish your thought.
So go ahead and I'm sorry. So yeah, so with that, having regular meetings in terms of the enforcement and the implementation of that. So that's an example of the P3.
Okay.
Just for clarification, could you explain is that?
Yes, I'm sorry. We're giving everybody 3 to 4 minutes to go ahead
For question.
Yes.
Okay. Thank you.
Sorry about that.
That's
we
fine.
didn't explain it to the other ones either. I apologize.
That's okay.
Describe a time when you had to manage a crisis situation in a city setting.
So in one instance, maybe not a crisis, but maybe a chaotic situation is in Miami Gardens. I was brought in as a 5th employee to be part of a startup of a city. And I was tasked with starting up a number of departments: finance department, purchasing department, human resources and risk department, IT department, fleet and general services, events and media. So I was tasked with doing all of that, and was able to accomplish that within a 5-year period. During that period of time, we insourced, we had a contracted sheriff's department. We were able to start a police department, and, heavily, that relies on IT, heavily that relies on purchasing, heavily that relies on HR. So that those are all my areas of responsibility. So not a crisis, but a managed situation where I was responsible for all of that. At the time I left, as I said, it was just about over 500 people, starting with going as a 5th employee, moving when I left to over 500. That was on a daily basis. It was, again, not a crisis but a managed situation where, you've got to get the payroll done. You've got to get connected to issues of retirement. You've got to work with various components that the system is down here. You've got a technical issue that you've got to fix. So it's a series of things that it's a managed control that you've got to triage things, get them prioritized, get them done, and get to the end product at the end.
Long-term financing of city operations will require a range of funding options. How do you approach financing and budget management, and what techniques or tools have you found effective?
So as an example, I directed your budget, this past budget, 376 million, and your 5-year CIP. I was very instrumental in offering input in the long-term strategies for the water, wastewater, solid waste. Recently helped to coordinate the Attorney General's audit responses. You recently had a vacancy in the CFO position, and within a week or two, your Assistant Director of Finance left. I was instrumental in leading the organization, or at least leading the finance department during that period, to be able to do some of these things. Simultaneously, you had a purchasing manager that was, the position was vacant. So at that time, I basically assumed a lot of the responsibilities of the CFO in terms of leading the organization. And I think one of the things that was celebrated was that during that period, we got our bond rating upgraded. We got the response back from the Attorney General. So those are some examples. I recently talked about the $60 million bond rating that was done in the city of Plantation, or the 27 million bond issue that was done in Oakland Park, or centralized purchasing, or the fact that you started a finance department and the various facets that relate to that. So those are some examples of the financial management that I've had.
What guides your management of personnel? How do you approach hiring, performance evaluation, discipline, motivation, anything like that, to build the most effective team?
So I think fairness is an important thing. Compensation is another thing. I've participated in your pay and class studies. I've participated in executive recruitment. Your CFO, your HR director, your parks director, a number of positions, key positions here, as well as positions in previous municipalities. Labor negotiations, I've been actively involved here as well as other municipalities. And in some of those municipalities, it involved negotiations with police and negotiations with fire. I think the issue of fairness is important. I think the issue of adequately compensating staff is important. The issue of treating people, understanding what the guidelines, what the rules are, and dealing with them equitably. From a staffing perspective, one of the benefits I've had is having the hands-on operation and experience in a number of areas, so I can speak the language. I've overseen HR and written the HR manual in some cities, and then acted as the HR director in cities. From a finance perspective, I've acted as an acting finance director, so I'm able to speak the language. I've acted as an acting parks director, over museums and library and parks. So I'm able to speak the language. So that helps me to understand the concerns of the staff as I listen to them or as they need to be translated, which is maybe different than the concerns expressed by a director or somebody who may not be a little further removed, or somebody who's not necessarily aware and in touch with the concerns of the staff.
How would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps do you take to ensure you're communicating effectively with all commissioners?
A number of ways. One of the things is a regular weekly report that maybe things that are non-crisis, certainly things that are crisis and immediate and urgent and, on a regular basis, on a daily basis, outreaching to the commission. One critical piece of keeping the commission informed is through the policy directive in terms of your regular agendas, making sure that, that's comprehensively done, professionally done, and communicating in the questions and the key areas that the commission should be concerned about. Another method is offering briefings to the commission. Very often, the briefings is a helpful way of doing one-on-one and allowing the commission to ask certain questions that are a little bit more nuanced, understand the pros and the cons of the various decisions, which they may not have the opportunity to, or they may be uncomfortable doing that in the public meeting. So those are all ways of keeping the commission informed. Certainly text is another less formal method of doing so.
How would you make a difficult decision? How would you make a difficult decision that was unpopular with the public or the commission?
I think I would be guided by what's right, what's principled, and what's fair. In some instances, if it's a commission that disagrees with it, I'd communicate with them, have them explain to them the reason and the rationale, why the decision is being made, hoping that they would understand. But at the end of the day, it's what's fair, what's equitable, what's right, what's consistent with our strategic plan. Those are all decisions and recommendations I would offer. If the decision is the commissioners, I would offer it to the commission and allow them to make it. If the decision is mine, then I'd take that responsibility, guided by these principles.
What is your vision for the city?
My vision for the city is a vibrant, active city. Some of the challenges that I had mentioned before, addressing some of those, with a revitalized, active, vibrant downtown here, a revitalized central city. So those are all things that I would see as a vision. Some of that would involve, some active development, some managed development, and to the extent of the development would depend on what the commission and the community would want, and that would require some outreach and some engagement. A more active leisure services in terms of the offerings, a robust and redeveloped facility in terms of our public safety assets. These are all things that I see as a vision for the city. And as I mentioned, a potential way of funding it, whether it's through bonds, whether it's through a P3 process, because that's an important way of addressing our assets and providing service to our community.
Are you comfortable working in a multi-ethnic environment?
Yes, I am. In most instances, I have worked in most instances, I've worked in a multi-ethnic environment. In Miami Gardens, for example, the population there was probably about 70% African-American. It's the fourth, I think it's one of the largest African-American municipalities in the state. So 110,000, and significantly Hispanic. In most other
areas Fort Lauderdale I've worked in, and that is relatively diverse, not just diverse in terms of the population, but diverse in terms of business community, diverse in terms of tourist community, diverse in terms of affluent as in terms of non-affluent. So diversity comes in different form. I think you may be asking about ethnic, and the answer is yes. But in addition to the ethnic diversity, I'm used to working with other diversity.
What is your biggest weakness and how would you overcome it?
I'll probably need the 3 minutes here. Nothing comes to mind. I think the biggest weakness is not knowing everything, not knowing all areas. And in terms of overcoming it, I think the way to overcoming it is relying on the expertise of those that are tasked with that responsibility. Now, in some instances, that may, in some instances, relying on that professional who I've hired or is tasked with that responsibility. I may be a generalist in a lot of areas, but I'm not an expert in all the areas. The general perspective will give me knowledge to ask certain questions from a budgeting perspective, from a management perspective, from accountability perspective, but the day-to-day experience, I may not have it in some areas, and overcoming it is just asking and following through with the expert.
Those are our questions. If you want to go ahead and wrap it up and give us a few comments.
Okay. Well, thank you to the committee, to the mayor and vice mayor and the commissioners. In summary, I've got 33 years in experience in municipal profession. 21 is at the leadership level, which is a city manager, DCM, or assistant city manager. Got experience in municipalities in South Florida, larger and more complex than Deerfield Beach. But I've also have experiences in municipalities with similar challenges. I've got experiences in public safety, in finance, economic development, redevelopment, in capital infrastructure, staffing, organizational development, hands-on in a number of areas. I am a credential manager with ICMA, and with that's them confirming the scope, level, and areas of responsibility, size of budget, and all that, and me providing a commitment to annual professional development, commitment to ICMA's Code of Ethics and Conduct, and commitment to annual ethics training. From a statewide perspective, I've been on the board and active in the statewide organization, as high as being the president, serving on the board in a different capacity, district representative, a board member, executive member, and the president of the FCCMA. Participated in panels, lectures, and training sessions in areas of public administration in Dade, Broward, and Palm Beach, invited based on the contribution that I have to offer. And even at ICMA, which is an international association, been on the conference planning, conference evaluation, and city assistance, as well as the ARPA association and groups. I'd be happy to work with the community, work with the commission in terms of the vision, and identify some of these long-term concerns that I've mentioned. I've got a proven track record of accomplishments, leadership within the community, leadership in professional development, and working in organizations in diversity in size and areas and responsibilities, and diversity in project scope. So I thank you for the opportunity to be interviewed for this, and look forward to be favorably considered.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor, that's your last candidate. You want to take a couple of minutes, and I'll make sure this candidate goes upstairs.
Sure. You guys have any questions that you want to bring anybody back down for? Do you have any questions you want to bring anybody back down to ask? You have to tell me what they are, but if you do, just,
I know. I'm thinking about one, but I think it may be inappropriate.
okay.
So I'm gonna keep.
Well, it's probably best not to ask inappropriate
Right.
questions. I'm gonna lean on that side. I think my attorney's probably gonna be cool with that also, so. Vice Mayor, do you have any people you want? to
I
bring
mean,
back
if we
in?
brought them back, I could ask them questions. I don't know that I have anything burning that's gonna tip the scale one way or another.
Okay. All right. You guys want to take a few minutes to take a look at what your notes are, and let anybody jump in whenever they want. Commissioner Hudak?
I was impressed with all of the candidates. Thank you very much. I was impressed with all of the candidates, so I want to thank you very much. I think they all bring, honestly, I think they could all do the job itself. So they all have a variety of experiences. I love Horus's experience. I think, I mean, his knowledge and what he has brought to the city, I think is invaluable. The experience of Mr. Chase at the county level, I think is definitely something that the city could use. Davis, right? Mr. Davis. Mr. Davis, he hasn't run a city before, and he's been a department head, but not the number one guy in a city. So this would be his first opportunity at that. So he would be kind of at the Rodney Brijmo level when it comes to the experience. I mean, the education on all of them is outstanding. Like I said, no matter who the city hires, I think we're going to be in a very good position. So if I just looked at today's interviews, I probably wouldn't. I would probably put Mr. Davis as my least option, just because of his experience. And I'm really, I really enjoyed listening to all of them. But what I have a history with Mr. Brijmo, and as the commission does, and what he has done since taking over this position, I think speaks a lot. I know he doesn't have the experience of the others, but I do like his management style. And I do like his passion for our city. And that's why I am glad we did look at the outside, but I am still, he would still be my number one candidate if I was to choose today.
Commissioner Parnas?
Although they're all qualified, I didn't see anything that outshined Rodney Brijmo. I can remember when he first came here, and I remember what he was able to accomplish. I remember being amused at the fact that the first thing that struck me was that he found we were being overcharged by our company at meters at the beach and collected an extra $30,000 they overcharged us. That kind of dedication to detail and protecting this city, to me, spoke volumes. And I haven't seen anything of the other three candidates to outshine him, to say they're close, but they're not Rodney. He communicates well. He's available to the commission. I've called him several times. I always get a call back. and he always answers my questions. So he's my number one choice.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Commissioner Preston, who wants to go?
Hey, why not you? First of all, I would like to thank Mr. Deneen for bringing the candidates in front of us. Thank you very much. Additionally, I'd like to thank my colleagues for their points because the two that have spoken already bring up some great points. And I could see them, how they are framing this. And I too like Mr. McHugh. He has a lot of experience and he has a lot to offer. And I know that Mr. Brijmo has been in this, has been appointed interim. And because he's been appointed interim, it shouldn't be a consideration to say, okay, we're going to give it to him because he is the interim. You have to look at the environment of a lot of different things. One of them is our employees, the environment of staff. And that kind of begins to formulate a picture. It begins to tell you about a particular leadership style. And without a person even talking about it, what do you see if you're making the decision on a person that you're bringing into the city as your city manager? What do you see? And to me, one of the biggest things is our employees, the environment that is created for them. And I have to say, with all honesty, I saw a profound difference, a positive difference with our employees, their attitudes. You know, when you're working with multiple levels, multiple departments, so many people, how do you motivate all of them toward a common cause? I mean, who dare takes on that task? It takes a pretty special person. Now, when you look at all the educational background of all of the candidates, I mean, you have to be impressed. These are very intelligent, educated people, but that's not what all it takes to run a city. You have to go outside of that. You have to engage with the public. You have to engage with the constituency. That's one of the reasons that I wanted the questions asked about working in a multi-ethnic, multiracial environment. And you were right, Mayor. You said every one of them, to what you said, would answer yes to that. You better answer yes, but you got no choice. But do you feel that? Now, here's what I know. There are candidates that stood before me and said, yes, I'm comfortable doing that. But with Rodney Brijmo, I've seen it. I saw what he did. I see how people respond to him. I was really kind of concerned, with the multiple years of being a police officer. Do you bring a police state in kind of type thing, a really rigid type environment? But that's not the case. That's not what he did. I believe that you have to take a careful view and you have to go beyond the idea that he is the interim. You have to really go beyond that. Did he, in the time that he was given, question is, did he make a difference? And that's either yes or no. And he did, in my opinion. And I think that he, when I look at his educational background numbers and understanding the financial background that it takes to run a city, can Rodney Brijmo do that? And I'm convinced that he can. I'm convinced that he can. But I just don't believe that, that we should not really be detailed. There was a lot of things that Mr. Brijmo was being evaluated by myself, and I didn't tell him. I'm just looking at how he interacted with employees. How did employees interact with him? What is the state of our city right now as far as the city manager? As a commissioner, do I feel balanced? Do I feel good? Do I feel that the city that I represent is moving in the right direction? And you got to answer those critical questions, whether you like him, because I could like him, but said that he's not so good at achieving those things. But, you know, he did an outstanding job in an extraordinary way in a very challenging situation. When the question came up about crisis, guess what? I think it kind of answered itself. And like I said, my colleague said it best. The other guys, I'm telling you, I was impressed with what they were saying. But let me tell you, two people come to mind with me, and that is Rodney Brijmo and Horus McHugh. That's where I'm at. And with Mr. McHugh, I'm sorry, with Mr. Brijmo being that candidate that I think should be awarded the position of city manager.
Yeah, thank you. Vice Mayor?
I guess it's my turn.
No kidding.
Really? I better write
Bid
this
goes-
down.
So likewise, Mr. Deneen, thank you for sorting through the resumes and going through the process with us, vetting these individuals and bringing them before us tonight. I know that's not easy and it's a lot of work. I want to also thank the 4 candidates for going through this process, particularly the 2 external candidates, because there could have been a perceived bias towards the 2 internal candidates, and they really didn't have to go through it if they didn't want to. So I really appreciate the 2 of them going through it. And it's going to be hard to summarize because I took a lot of notes. It's going to be hard to summarize, you know, a 30-minute interview for each in a couple of minutes here. But just some general observations that I made about all 4. Two of them to me set themselves apart than the other 2, but all 4 are very qualified and each have their own respective strengths. As we heard here tonight, and you could easily pick any of the 4 and not make a wrong decision. But we have to make that decision, and 2 of them I think are slightly, if I had to rank them, I have like 1A and 1B and 2A and 2B. It's really that close. With Mr. Brijmo, he's a known entity. He's been the interim city manager for 11 weeks now. And so we've all had interactions with him. We've seen his individual style. We see how he communicates with us, how he handles commission meetings. So maybe he has an advantage over his fellow interviewees tonight. And he answered the questions very specifically. But they all came from, if I have any, criticism, they all came from, a law enforcement or public safety background, which I'm not saying is bad, but there's multiple facets to the city manager job. For example, you're going to need to know budgeting and HR and procurement. Those are also very important aspects that come with the city manager position. And so Mr. Brijmo's answers were all, for the most part, from a law enforcement and public safety background and didn't have these other flavors mixed in with his comments. And not to nitpick, but I did find it very interesting that Mr. Brijmo was the only one tonight not to wear a tie. I'm not sure, if I would have taken this, just if you wear a tie, you're taking the process seriously. And the fact that he didn't have one, it's not a disqualifying factor by any stretch of the imagination. But I did find that a little strange that you would interview for a city manager position and be the only one of the 4. The second candidate was Randy Cross. And I found him to be a very intriguing candidate, to be honest with you. I think his interview started slow, but as it went on, he kind of picked up momentum, and I think he really found his groove by the end of his interview. And if there was more time, I think he would have continued to go. And if you look at his resume, he has public works, human resources, planning manager, support services commander, procurement, COO, and HR director. Very intriguing qualities over 23 years of backgrounds. And the commander position included purchasing and logistics, according to the notes that I wrote down. So he checks a lot of the boxes with respect to a varied background and with respect to having the certain educational components and being well-rounded. I think he's the most well-rounded candidate of all of them, to be honest with you. So I really find him to be very intriguing. And then his response to question number 9, and question number 9 was, how would you keep the commission informed and involved in city activities? What steps do you take to ensure you are communicating effectively with all commissioners? I found his interesting. He was the only one that just directly came out and said no favoritism. And in addition to that, he said, be accurate. And that's extremely important in what you relay to your commission, that he said basically he doesn't want his commissioners to hear it from the public first. He wants it to hear it from him. So he needs to be informed and then to be able to communicate to the commissioners and to communicate it accurately. And I think that's a very, very important aspect to the city manager job, because he deals, or she deals with the 5 of us every day. And so it's very important to relay that information. And I found his answer actually to be very enlightening. And I liked it a lot. And then his answer with respect to question number 12, which was the multi-ethnic environment, like everyone else, he said yes. But I also found very intriguing, he was the only one to say to have an open heart, show some compassion. So I found his answers to be very interesting. And the 1A and the 1B, he's one of them. The third candidate was Jason Davis from St. Lucie County. And likewise, he has a little bit of a varied background as well to his benefit. The fact that his mind is going a million miles an hour on all these different subjects can be taken as a plus or a minus. I don't necessarily think it's a minus. I think it's a plus in that he's constantly thinking, constantly involved, constantly saying, how can I do things better? How can I improve processes? How can I improve procedures? And he's very, very forthcoming with that. In fact, in his opening remarks, he mentioned to us that he doesn't like to sit in the office all day. That's not his style. He likes to kind of get out there, probably because that mind is moving a million miles an hour, according to him. So he likewise has some of the characteristics that I was looking for in this position. And the fact that he's basically taking additional continuing education almost for the heck of it. He said he doesn't have to do it, but he wants to do so that he can become more educated and more involved in the county and more involved with the residents. So he comes from a strong HR background, and then he's getting his budget certification when he readily admitted he doesn't need it or have to have it, but he wants it so he's able to communicate better and to understand better and to have better conversations. So someone in my mind that in this position that wants to still continue to take continuing education and better themselves means that they can only better the organization. And then lastly was Mr. McHugh, who also is a known entity here in the city of Deerfield Beach. 23 years experience in executive positions in various cities. You could tell by his comments, because he gave specifics. A lot of the other candidates kind of gave general answers in response to the mayor. He was very specific in mentioning projects in Oakland Park, in Miami Gardens, and not just mentioning those projects, but actually mentioning the details that came along with those comments, those projects rather. So the comments, I took good notes on that, and I think it's when you're that detail oriented in your interview, you're going to be that detail oriented as the city manager as well. The only knock I would say is that he, in response to question number 13, which was what is your weakness? His answer was that he perceives, using his words, himself as a generalist and not exactly an expert. And so I think the city manager has to be an expert in something. Mr. Brijmo is the expert in public safety. Mr. Davis and Mr. Cross both have, they said that the HR was their bailiwick. And we didn't hear that from Mr. McHugh. So all four have, like I said, pluses and minuses. If you're asking me who my 1A is and who my 2A and 2B are, it's 1A and 1B, and I'm not picking who's A or B at this point, would be Rodney Brijmo and Randy Cross. And then my 2A and 2B are Jason Davis and Horus McHugh, but only because I have to under this process. It's not easy to do that, but given the information that's on the paper with respect to the resumes and then the interviews tonight, I approach this process with a fresh set of eyes to all four candidates. And that's how I'm kind of looking at it right now.
Thank you.
Mhm.
I think definitely the two internal candidates always going to have a perceived leg up, and that's why I think some of the questions when we say, well, what business should you go to first and why, that's an unfair question to ask the candidates who probably aren't familiar with our city to do that. But interesting responses all the way around. You noticed that one common thing that was said is servant leaders. I think all four said that. I don't know if that was in some, here's how you interview for a city manager buzzword, your word of the day thing. But I believe their answers to the questions kind of lent itself that that's what they were looking to do. It is extremely impressive that Mr. McHugh was able to start a city from the ground up. That's extremely impressive. And I think a lot of the questions, though, when you look at that tremendous experience that you have, is more, this is what I've done, as opposed to this is what I want to do for this city. This is what I want to do moving forward. And if you look at each one of them had their own areas of specialty, I would say. I look at Mr. Davis and I say he would be a great project manager for us. I mean, here's somebody that I think could come in, take a look at it. How do we do this creatively? How do we organize it and do it in a great way? I don't necessarily think his style and some of his answers to his questions would be the best candidate for our city manager. He talks about the soft skills that he has, and I think those are extremely important. I think those are very important when you deal with the community and deal with the commission, and even businesses. I think that's an excellent thing to have. But I look at that person as what a great project manager that person would be for us. Now, that's important to have that level of expertise when you're looking at a city manager position. But I think there's some areas there that weren't quite as well rounded. I looked at Mr. Cross as having a great background. I love the human resources background to it. And that can be looked at as a good thing and a bad thing, because while that seems to be, HR is always looked at as, well, they're perceived as being pro-employee. That's not necessarily the case with HR. And sorry, I know our HR director's here, but a lot of times it's more about the company. And you come from that background, Commissioner. It's a little bit more about the company than less about the employees. But I still think an outstanding background. And we talked about the diversity. If you look at Miramar, that's an extraordinarily diverse area. And for him to be there that long in those different positions is extremely impressive. I mean, to do that, because there's been, over the years that he's been there, if you look historically of what Miramar has had, it's been pretty volatile at times. And to be able to survive that as an employee is very impressive. There are weaknesses with some. I think, when you look at some of the viewpoints that they have, I thought I would have liked to have heard a little bit more about the public-private partnerships, because I think those are challenging and not always in the best favor for us. I liked a lot of the answers that Rodney gave on the questions, as far as making it about his philosophy and his approach to things, and less about I thought that was pretty in depth in what he went into. You look at the the values of the organization, the vision of the commission, building a consensus. When you look at some of those, you know, coming from a crisis management position, those are great. One question that we asked him, I thought it was an impressive way to answer it, was the question regarding how do you basically deliver bad news, whether it be to the commission or the public. And it was educating them. And that was, I thought that was pretty interesting to say. It's about education. Here's why we made a decision. This is what it was. I thought that was really strong. I liked when Horus talked about, you know, pros and cons and bringing that forward. That's something that I think has been lacking at times. Here we get, you know, I think we sometimes get skewed information that it's not always laid out. Look, if you do this, this is what it's going to do. If you don't do it, this is what it's going to do, and gives you the pros and cons. And I like that approach. But looking at this for me, Mr. Brijmo would be my top choice, and that's where I would be at right now. Commissioner Preston and Commissioner Parnas.
Thank you, Mayor. You know, Vice Mayor, you brought up some points about Mr. Davis. And, you know, I saw it different than the Vice Mayor did. The Vice Mayor said that, you know, he clearly was getting certifications that he didn't need. And that is true. However, if you listen to his whole thing, well, I thought I wanted to do this. So I stopped and I started getting a degree in this. And I didn't really want to do that. And so it gave me a picture of he didn't really know what he wanted to do. So if you put him in that position, does he complete it? That type of scenario made me feel that he was unsure about what he wanted to do. So, well, I didn't want to do that. So I started a degree in this, and then I started a degree in this, and then I started a degree in this. I didn't quite really want to do that. So can you make a true commitment? Do you know definitively that you're willing to embrace all of the challenges that it comes with being city manager for Deerfield Beach? That didn't give me a solid thing, even though he's pursuing all of these things, never really solidly locked into something with a passion that he wanted to do. So that's how I saw it.
Okay. Commissioner Parnas.
I'm going to make a motion that Rodney Brijmo be the permanent city manager.
He wants
Commissioner Hudak, you had your light.
No, I'll second that.
Okay. And I'm sorry, and that's, that motion is pending negotiation of a successful employment agreement, correct?
Yes.
And the second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion to second.
Open up to the public?
We already did in the very beginning.
For the
Yes, it was. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
You can open up to the public now, Mayor. Additionally, if you do make an appointment tonight, subject to successful negotiation of employment agreement, we'll be bringing back an item for you on this.
Can you open it up again to the public again? Yes.
You can always open it up to the public if you so choose.
The public.
Of course. Dan Hers, 330 Southeast 19th Avenue. I'm a little disappointed that one of the questions tonight was not the following. There is an election in only 49 days. What innovative ways would the new city manager have to promote the election to maximize voter turnout? Whoever is selected tonight to become the next permanent city manager of Deerfield Beach should take a pledge to promote the Deerfield Beach municipal elections on March 11, 2025. As of today, there is no plan in place by the city to promote the municipal elections in March. There is also no plan whatsoever by the city to educate the citizens that if they had a vote by mail ballot in November presidential elections, they will not get a ballot for the March 11th election. The citizens must request a vote by mail ballot from the Broward Supervisor of Elections. The city answered my 2 Freedom of Information Act requests by saying no such record exists of a marketing or promotion plan. There are deadlines for registering to vote and for requesting a vote by mail ballot, but the city has not posted anything about these deadlines that I am aware of. I don't know what to call the city's lack of promotion about the election other than voter suppression. Or perhaps the city is proud of a 10 to 12% of the registered voters turnout. I did notice there was a beautiful new section on the city's webpage entitled Centennial. Whoever selected tonight as the new city manager should have a 120-day probationary period included in their new contract by the city attorney. The March elections are 49 days away, and there hopefully will be 3 new elected officials on the dais. Those 3 newly elected officials should have the freedom to work with a city manager of their choice, just like the city of Fort Lauderdale recently did in their city manager search, holding it off until after their election of new commissioners. It would be a travesty to the taxpayers to be on the hook for a golden parachute clause or some other type of money grab built into a city manager's contract that may only be in place for less than 60 days. By the way, my vote would have been for the second candidate. And finally, I would be remiss if I didn't wish the mayor a safe journey on his upcoming big trip.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Good evening. Wayne Atkins, 1004 Southeast 14 Drive. Commissioner, I met you on your door knocks, and Commissioner Preston, I met you unfortunately when the deputy was killed about 6 years ago, and I showed you around the scene. I'm a former law enforcement. I just retired from 44 years, started with the Pompano Beach Police Department, and we merged over with Broward Sheriff's Office. In my 44 years, I am a 42-year resident here in Deerfield Beach, and I'm celebrating about 1 hour of my 43-year anniversary married to my wife. So we have roots here in Deerfield Beach. And knowing Rodney, that I've known him for the last 26 years, worked with him, and he has worked with me in all of his capacities. I'm very pleased to hear the comments that you've made from him, because he is an outstanding person to begin with, first of all, and his family, and how he handles critical situations, and how I have no doubt that the city will be in good hands with Rodney at the helm, reporting to you all and to the citizens of Pompano Beach. I'm sorry, 44 years it's there, but again, great job on the applicants tonight, and I look forward to being more involved now that I'm retired. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. Anyone else? Anyone online? Ms. Freitag, go ahead.
Of course.
Katie Freitag, 418 Southeast 2nd Street. Of course, Commissioner Parnas, we have to get up and speak because, you know, we can. That's our right and due diligence by being city residents. My request, or something of a consideration to think of, with the position being vacated by Rodney Brijmo for him to take on the new position, maybe that position could be offered to Mr. Davis. I believe that is his name, the person who is basically second ranked. I think that would be a great position for him to take over for our city, with the vacancy that it's going to open up with Rodney moving into his new position, with his expertise in working for other companies, other governments, other counties, knowing that he even said, I'm looking forward to working with a smaller budget. He might be able to help us in a lot of different ways in that position. So if it's something that we can work on, maybe it's an offer that we can make to him in lieu of him being named as the city manager. So that's just my thought. And thank you again. And I hope everybody has is having a great Happy New Year.
Thank you, Ms. Freitag. Appreciate that. That's actually a very good idea. Who else? Okay, I'm going to close it to the public.
Roll call.
We have a motion and a second on the floor. Just one thing I will say, I have no idea what anybody's talking about voter suppression, not enough advertising for the election, because I think we're regularly doing that. So we'll get that information, but yeah, we're regularly pushing that. But, okay, we have a motion and a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Hudak,
Yes.
Commissioner Parnas,
Yes.
Commissioner Preston,
Yes.
Vice Mayor Drosky,
Yes.
Mayor Gans.
Yes.
You're now at adjournment.
Motion to adjourn?
Wait.
Whoa.
Wait.
Are you gonna make the motion?
No, I just wanted to add that, because this happens all the time. Usually the best thing to do is if you're going to offer the person to enter into a contract is to call them down. Because they're upstairs waiting.
Oh, absolutely.
Well,
Okay, so you may want
so in
to,
other words, well, let me ask you this.
Mhm.
That's an awkward position to go there and have one person come down and do that. I guess that's how it's telling them. You got a job.
well, I'll go up and talk to them.
Okay.
But then I think you probably should say something to the person you selected.
Sounds good.
Yeah, and I'll go up and talk to them. They all wanted the job, but they knew they can't all get it. I also wanted to say, thank you for the opportunity. We pride ourselves on our reputation, and we like working for cities that have just as good a reputation.
Excellent job.
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you.
Really good process, so I appreciate it.
Appreciate that. If you ever want to use us again for anything, you
Hopefully
have.
not.
Well, we help you with directors and other
But
positions.
please let them know we're impressed with all of them.
I will.
Thank
I
you.
will.
Is there the opportunity, Mr. Deneen,
Get 'em.
for the three unsuccessful to come down as well? Is that,
Yes,
is that appropriate?
actually,
I mean, that would be nice to.
Actually, Commissioner, that is actually what some cities do is you invite all four down. You mentioned, two of the candidates are not internals, but I will tell you, they came because they believed, which I believed, because I think you are a good client, okay, is that you would make an honest decision in front of the public. And if the internal candidate or candidates, whichever one wins, they won because they won. And they would not have come if they thought that it was greased. Okay. So I think telling them this is not unusual to say that you appreciate that they came, I think really speaks well for the city. And that way everyone knows what happened. They all waited upstairs to hear, but they would not have come because I actually have sometimes hard to recruit some places if they have an internal candidate because people under the sunshine law are afraid to give their resume, figuring I don't have that good a chance. I convinced them that's not going to happen in this case because I know the reputation of the city. So the bottom line is I think everybody will take it that whoever won, but I don't think it hurts to tell people that came this far, thank you for coming.
I like that idea. I think you should bring
Go
all
get the
four down.
candidates.
Bring all four down. We'll thank them and then we'll announce it to all four of
You
them.
can do that and I'll let them
Whatever
know.
you'd like.
Okay, I think it's appropriate, especially because you're a classy city.
Bring them
Yes,
all down.
thank you.
Are you telling number one upstairs or are you letting us do that down here?
No, I'm upstairs so they
Okay.
Then that way you can talk to all four and then you can let the one know that you're gonna offer him. Obviously, you won't hire him until your next meeting. We have a contract or whenever.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you all for the chocolates.
That was Tom. Here.
No. My sugar will go through the roof.
That's 6.
No, I had your 3 and my 3
That's 6.
and Todd's.
9.
Mhm. Well, he's
It wasn't like 4. That'd be great if I had to go 1, 2. Oh, okay.
really like how the priority is that, you know, the top priority request for city managers that need to pledge to promote the election.
You know, that happens sometimes. I hear you.
Yeah, I know. I know. Some people aren't. Oh, I think most of the public know that somebody's not telling the truth.
Bill, while we're waiting, tell me something about procedure.
With this procedure that we just did?
No,
Nope,
when my term is up,
nope.
what?
We're in the middle of a meeting.
All right, call me when you get a
We'll
chance.
just ask the city manager.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Here they come.
Thank you.
Morning.
Gentlemen, on behalf of the city commission and the residents of Deerfield Beach, we want to thank you for coming forward. It was not an easy decision. Outstanding candidates, all of you. And we want to thank you so much for participating in this, and hopefully we wish you the best in the future. But thank you so much. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Listen.
Did Mr. Benson advise who got the opportunity?
Yeah.
Okay, that's right. Thank you so much. No, Extremely honored.
Thanks, man.
Thank you, sir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Doctor, nicely done.
Thank you.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Thank you.
Okay.
You may not want to make a couple of comments.
Not yet. Mr. Brumlow, you, I guess, have a few words.
I want to start by thanking certainly this commission for putting that level of trust in me. I hope and I pray I won't disappoint you. I will be working hard as I have been from tonight. Most of my staff know they usually get emails from me 1 o'clock, 2 o'clock in the morning, and they'll be getting some tonight, of course, too. But I appreciate that. And what I said tonight during all of my questions, I really meant. That's all from my heart. There's nothing else I can be with you except authentic. And that's what I can promise you you'll always get. And you'll get my best efforts, and you'll get all my expertise that I can bring to the table. So I will do that for you. I'll do that for whoever the commission happens to be. And certainly always with the ultimate goal in mind to serve our residents and our community in the very best way possible. I thank you all for that.
Thank you very much.
Motion to adjourn.
Motion second. All in favors? Aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned.
Rodney. Call me tomorrow.